Ikaw ba ay isang rehistradong botante para sa May 9, 2022 elections? Narito ang 12 bagay na hindi mo dapat gawin bago, sa araw mismo at pagkatapos ng eleksyon batay sa Omnibus Election Code at sa mga panuntunan ng Commission on Elections. Huwag ibenta ang iyong boto. Ang pagbili ng boto o pagbenta ng boto ay mahigpit na ipinagbabawal sa ilalim ng Omnibus Election Code. Ito ay may kaukulang parusa ng pagkakakulong mula 1 hanggang 6 na taon, pagkadiskwalipika sa pagsilbi sa isang pampublikong posisyon at pagkawala ng karapatang bumoto. Ang isang partidong politikal na mapapatunayang bumili o nagbenta ng boto ay pamumultahin na hindi bababa sa 10,000 piso. Huwag pagpustahan ang resulta ng eleksyon. Ang kahit na anong pera o bagay na may halaga na itinaya sa pustahan para sa resulta ng eleksyon ay mapupunta sa estado. Huwag pilitin o takutin ang iyong mga subordinates, kabilang ang mga miyembro ng parokya o simbahan, mga kasambahay, o mga nangungupahan para ikampanya o iboto o hindi iboto ang isang kandidato. Huwag pilitin o takutin sa direkta o hindi direktang paraan ang kahit na sinong opisyal o kawani para sa eleksyon. Huwag magdala ng baril sa labas ng iyong bahay o lugar ng trabaho. Kahit na ikaw ang may permit to carry, kailangan mo pa rin ng sulat mula sa COMELEC na nagsasaad na ikaw ay maaaring magbitbit ng baril sa labas. Huwag bumoto ng higit sa 1 beses sa isang eleksyon. Huwag bumoto kung ikaw ay hindi rehistradong botante. Ang double voting o mas kilala sa tawag na flying voter ay may kaukulang parusa ng pagkabilanggo ng hanggang 6 na taon at multa na hanggang 10,000 piso. Huwag bumoto bilang kahalili ng isang rehistradong botante kahit pa may pahintulot. Huwag gumamit ng ibang balota maliban sa ibibigay ng Board of Election Inspectors. Ipinagbabawal din ang pagkakaroon ng higit sa isang official ballot. Huwag picturan ang iyong balota. Hindi rin pinapayagan ang mag-selfie kasama ng iyong balota. Huwag magbitbit ng nakamamatay na armas sa loob ng presinto kung saan ka boboto at sa loob ng radius na 100 metro mula sa presinto sa araw ng eleksyon. Huwag magbenta, mag-alok, bumili, maghain, o kumuha ng alak at iba pang nakakalasing ng inumin 1 araw bago ang eleksyon at sa mismong araw ng eleksyon. Ang mga hotels at establisimento lamang na pinapayagan ng Department of Tourism na magsilbi ng alak sa mga dayuhang turista ang maaaring di masaklawan ng liquor ban. Huwag magdaos o makilahok sa sabong, boxing, karera ng kabayo, hay-alay at iba pang kahalintulad na laro sa araw ng eleksyon. Bawat boto ay mahalaga at ang isang boto ay maaaring magresulta sa 6 na taon na maayos na pamamalakad ng gobyerno at matatag na ekonomiya o 6 na taon na talamak ang korupsyon, mataas ang porsyento ng mga walang trabaho at mas laganap na kahirapan. Protektahan mo ang iyong kinabukasan sa pamamagitan ng hindi pagbenta ng iyong boto. Tandaan, huwag matakot bumoto at bumoto ng tama. Painit ng painit ang nalalapit na eleksyon. Pero hindi dapat kalimutan na tayo ay nasa gitna pa ng pandemya at may mga nagsusulputang variants ng COVID-19 na posibleng mas malala. Pakikipagkamay, beso-beso, selfies, may mahigpit na paalala si Commission on Election spokesman James Jimenez.
Well, napakahalaga kasi na panatiliin nating ang seguridad ng ating mga mamamayan. Alam naman natin na during the campaign period, talagang ang posibleng tamaan ng COVID, dahil dito nga sa ongoing na pandemic natin, ay hindi naman yung mga kandidato o yung kanilang mga campaign staff, kundi yung mga taong nag-a-attend sa kanilang mga rally. Kaya napakahalaga na pangalagaan natin ang kanilang kalusugan. And this responsibility falls squarely on the shoulders of the candidates and their campaign teams.
Narito ang mga panuntunang itinakda ng COMELEC sa ilalim ng Resolution number 10732 kung paano matitiyak na ang mga campaign activities para sa May 9, 2022 na eleksyon ay hindi maging COVID super spreader events. Lahat ng kandidato at kanilang mga campaign support staff ay itinuturing na authorized persons outside of residence or APOR kahit ano paman ang alert level system at kanilang vaccination status. Ang face-to-face sorties, rallies, conventions, motorcades, caravans at meeting the avance ay pinapayagan lamang sa mga lugar na nasa ilalim ng alert levels 1, 2 at 3. Ang mga batang may edad 17 pababa at mga nakatatandang may edad 66 pataas at ang may mga kondisyong medikal, kabilang na ang mga buntis, ay bawal dumalo sa mga ganitong aktibidad.
At huwag nating kakalimutan yung mga selfie, mga pagkamay-kamay, pagyakap-yakap, beso-beso. Saglit lang yan. Wala pang ilang segundo yan, tapos na yan, lumipas na. Pero pag kayo ay nagkasakit, dahil dyan, pag kayo ay nagka-COVID, mahabang gamutan yan, mahabang bubunuin ng inyong kalusugan yan, at hindi lang yan, pati ng inyong finances. Napakamahal magkasakit ngayon. So, wag nating isasang-alang sa kakunting enjoyment yung mas mahabang problema ng COVID.
Ang indoor campaign ay hindi pinapayagan sa mga lugar na nasa ilalim ng Alert Level 4. Mga outdoor na aktibidad lamang na nasa 30% capacity ang pinapayagan. Kahit na anong meeting, convention, rally, motorcade, caravan, o meeting the avance ay hindi pinapayagan sa mga lugar na nasa ilalim ng Alert Level 5. Ang mga kandidato o ang kanilang mga campaign support staff ay pinagbabawalang gawin ang mga sumusunod. Huwag pumasok sa pribadong pamamahay habang nagsasagawa ng house-to-house campaign kahit pa pumayag ang may-ari ng bahay. Bawal ang pakipagkamay, pagyakap, beso-beso, o kahit na anong physical contact sa kandidato o mga kasama nila at sa publiko. Bawal ang makipag-selfie o pagkuha ng litrato na lalabag sa social distancing protocols. Bawal mamahagi ng pagkain o inumin upang maiwasang magtanggal ng face mask ang mga tao.
Ang ating kalusugan at kasiguruhan sa panahon ng pandemya ay nakasalalay sa individual na pananagutan or individual responsibility. Kailangan tayo maging responsible tayo sa sarili nating mga gawa. Kung tayo ay magbibehave in a safe manner, magiging safe tayo lahat. Kung tayo mismo ang lalabag sa mga protocols na itinakda ng ating health authorities, talagang tataas ang tsansa ng infection in our population. So, kailangan doon sa mga botante, doon sa mga nanunood ng mga rally, kayo mismo, magkusa kayo na huwag ninyong gagawin yan.
Tandaan, ang paglabag sa mga health protocols sa mga aktibidad na may kinalaman sa eleksyon ay itinuturing na election offense. Ang mga lalabag sa panuntunang itinakda ay nahaharap sa hanggang 6 na taong pagkabilanggo at multa na hindi bababa sa 10,000 piso. Maaari ding mawala ang karapatang bumoto pag ikaw ay nahatulang guilty sa paglabag sa mga protocols. Tunay na mahirap ang pangangampanya para sa eleksyon, pero sa gitna ng patuloy na public health crisis, ito ay higit pang naging masalimuot. Ang mga kandidato, ang kanilang campaign staff, at ang publiko ay marapat na piliin lagi ang kaligtasan at kalusugan una sa lahat. Tandaan, huwag matakot bumoto at bumoto ng tama. Kung ikaw ay nakakita ng aktibidad na lumalabag sa mga naturang panuntunan sa iyong lugar, huwag mag-atubiling magsumbong sa COMELEC sa kanilang Facebook, Twitter at mobile. Kada eleksyon, pumipili ang sambayanang Pilipino ng susunod na lider ng bansa, ng taong magtatakda ng plano at polisiya para sa 6 na taon ng ating kinabukasan. Pero ano nga ba ang hinahanap natin sa isang leader? Sa anong mga kwalifikasyon natin titimbangin ang mga kandidatong nanliligaw para sa matamis nating boto?
Dapat ang leader natin matapang, walang uurungan.
Oo nga. Ang gusto kong kandidato ay yung magaling sumayaw at entertaining.
Gusto ko yung matikas, yung magaling magdala ng sarili.
Sana yung susunod na presidente mayaman na para hindi na mangurakot.
Alam mo bang base sa ating konstitusyon, 5 lang ang kwalifikasyon para sa mga nagnanais tumakbong presidente ng Pilipinas? Una, kailangan natural-born citizen ng Pilipinas. Ikalawa, kailangang rehistradong botante. Ikatlo, marunong bumasa at magsulat. Ika-4, nasa edad na 40 sa araw ng eleksyon. At ika-5, residente ng Pilipinas sa loob ng 10 taon bago ang eleksyon. Simple, hindi ba? Walang itinatakdang kwalifikasyon base sa edukasyon, work experience o kayamanan. Pero simple nga bang tunay ang mga dapat nating hanapin sa susunod na leader ng ating bansa? Ayon kay Commission on Elections spokesperson James Jimenez, marami pa tayong pwede at dapat hanapin.
Very basic o payak ang ating requirements. Ibig ba sabihin nito na yan lang ang kailangan nating hanapin? Siyempre hindi. Yan ang tinatawag nating minimum. Pwede kang maghanap ng mas lampas pa dyan. No? Halimbawa, maghanap ka ng taong merong integridad. Gawin mong necessary ingredient yan. Gawin mong kalakip yan ng pagpili mo kung sino magiging Pangulo. Kailangan may integridad, kailangan may kakayanan, kailangan magaling, kailangan matalino, at kailangan nagsasabi ng katotohanan sa bayan. Kasi ang pipiliin natin ay hindi lang basta-bastang tao. Leader natin ang pipiliin natin. Leader natin na bibigyan natin ng napakalaking kapangyarihan. Kapangyarihan over our lives, over our livelihoods, over our country. So, bagaman maliit or payak lamang ang requirements ng konstitusyon, kailangan tayo bilang botante, pag boboto na tayo, kailangan medyo mas mataas naman ang standards natin.
Tunay na marami tayong dapat hanapin na katangian sa susunod na leader ng bayan. Ngayon, higit kailanman, kailangan nating maging mapanuri.
Sa tingin ko bilang botante, kailangan maging mas mapanuri tayo dahil hindi biro ang halangan. Hindi biro ang hinihingi sa atin ng mga kandidatong yan. Gusto nila maging leader natin. Gusto nila magkaroon ng kapangyarihan sa ating kabuhayan, sa ating buhay, sa ating bansa. At dahil dyan, kailangan natin maging mapanuri. Kung jowa mo nga lang pinadadaan mo sa butas ng karayom bago mo sagutin, paano pa kaya yung mga elected leaders natin na may tunay na kapangyarihan sa iyo?
Sabi nga ni Director Jimenez, kung kinikilatis nating maigi ang isang potensyal na jowa bago ibigay ang matamis nating oo, mas lalong higit na dapat nating kilatisin ang mga nanliligaw para sa makapangyarihan nating boto.
Hindi pa kami pwedeng bumoto.
Kaya sana pumili kayo ng tama para sa aming kinabukasan.
Tandaan, huwag matakot bumoto at bumoto ng tama. Hello, Joyce.
Hi Ariel, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Ayun, it's already 1:01, 1:02 to be exact. At andito na lahat ng ini-expect natin sa loob ng meeting room. And at the same time, the others who are watching us live via FB streaming, kami po ay nagpapasalamat sa inyo lahat for attending this forum at napakahalaga po ang pag-uusapan natin ngayong hapon. My name is Ariel C. Sabelino. I'm the Executive Director and Trustee of the Philippine Press Institute. Also with me is the Seminar Director of the PPI, Joyce Pañares, who will come in later for the open forum, for the sessions in the open forum. Papasalamat kami sa Seidel Foundation for supporting this activity. Bagamat hindi namin napag-uusapan lagi ang media accountability, pero now is the right time to talk about it. And also, for those who are not familiar with the Philippine Press Council or kung ano ang Press Council, ito na po ang tamang panahon para ipakilala sa inyo ang Press Council. Matagal na po ang Philippine Press Council under the Philippine Press Institute. At ito ay, technically is there, pwedeng paganahin, gumagana din naman. And the former chair of the Philippine Press Council, si Professor Gary Mariano, is joining us today, who is also going to talk about it. Of course, Sir Rolly Estabilio at lahat po ng ating kasamahan sa training team. Again, good afternoon everyone. Kung nasaan man kayong sulok ng mundo or sa dako ng Pilipinas, sana po ay safe kayo lagi at pinapanalangin namin sa Diyos na tayo po ay bigyan ng magandang kalusugan para po ay makagawa pa tayo ng madami pang activities, di ba Joyce? Hindi lang sa PPI, pero sa inyong kanya-kanyang organisasyon. Katulad din ng Seidel Foundation. Please do not forget to like or visit the pages of PPI and Seidel Foundation para po sa karagdagang impormasyon at mga detalye sa aming activities all year round. In fact, pinakita ni Claire sa inyo, just showed to you yung upcoming activities namin. Napakarami, papasalamat kami sa Seidel Foundation. Hindi lang po Seidel Foundation ang principal partner ng PPI. We also have Nickel Asia Corporation for some other activities. And having said about media accountability and the Press Council, I'd like to introduce to you the chairperson of the Philippine Press Institute, also the publisher of Manila Standard, to share his thoughts about media accountability. At mamaya, kakaroon kami ng konti pag-uusap kung ano ba yung naiisip ng chairman ng PPI kung papaganahin itong Press Council under the Philippine Press Institute. Please welcome Mr. Rolando Rolly Estabilio. Good afternoon, sir.
Hi, good afternoon, Ariel.
Good afternoon. The floor is yours.
Nice introduction.
Thank you. Thank you. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. Nice to see you all.
Yes.
Well, let me just acknowledge first our guest and resource person. First off, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Seidel Foundation, and of course, Mr. Goich, Attorney Goich Heineke, the country representative of this foundation, Ms. Carol Lee, also of Seidel Foundation, Professor Gary Mariano, former chair, Philippine Press Council, Cherry Ann Lim, Cebu City Press Council, Jane Cadalig, Cordillera Media Citizens Council, Jonathan De Santos, Chairman, National Union Journalists of the Philippines, Luz Rimban, Ateneo de Manila University, Amalia Cabusao, Mindanao Times and PPI Vice Chair, Dexter C. and Jonald Reyes, PPI Luzon Trustees. Good afternoon, everyone. First up, let me welcome everyone to this PPI webinar on media accountability and Press Council. Allow me to thank Attorney Checking Chiares of the Cebu City Press Citizens Council for acknowledging PPI for its paid work it initiated 8 years ago that led to the establishment of a press council in the Queen City of the South. Kudos we must give to my predecessor, Jesus Dureza, publisher of Mindanao Times and former press secretary, and of course our executive director, Ariel Hassel Cervantes, for their pioneering effort to set up a grievance mechanism as a way of media members to be accountable for their work. sorry, I am having some problem. Okay. Okay. I will not tarry much because I know your job, you still have a long way to go to revive this press council. At any rate, let me just give you some of my thoughts. The biggest hurdle a typical journalist faces every time he goes out to work is to be true to his calling. There is a myriad of pressures that can lead him to astray from the straight and narrow confine of ethical journalism. While there are newsroom guidelines to steer him towards that path, they are often honored in the breach rather than in the observance. This becomes even more prevalent in this day and age of digital journalism. The advent of personal computers has opened up an opportunity for everyone and anyone to become, quote unquote, a journalist. The internet at the fingertips disposal has allowed one and all to write and post articles on the web. This has given rise to bloggers, trolls, influencers that have blurred the lines between ethical and unethical journalism. Worse, it has left news consumers dissatisfied and skeptical. Journalists are supposed to be the gatekeepers of news. But somehow, the traditional newsroom has abdicated that space to social media, wherein the discourse and disinformation and misinformation abound. With no accountability for what is being dished out on the web, the result is the proliferation of fake news that has distorted the definition of journalism. In such a world, ethics, more than ever, is what we need in the workplace. A good and effective journalist who holds people and government accountable must begin his trade with a level of personal accountability. As the saying goes, he that will come into equity must come with a clean hand. Simply put, ethical journalism begins with oneself by being accountable for his work. This entails factual information, hard evidence, balance, and impartiality in news articles crafted in outstanding grammar, spelling, and punctuation. In all this, humanity must be present by drawing the line between hurtful and harmful. This makes for credibility, which is at the heart of journalism in one's work. By getting facts right, which in turn is the cardinal principle of journalism, accountability comes to the fore, a sign of professionalism and responsible journalism. But as I said at the outset, many media practitioners fail to observe morally driven rules as they buckle down doing their job amid internal and external pressures. The result? Complications and conflicts set in that in many instances need law's intervention. Your task today, therefore, is precisely to address and avoid such confrontation and ensure ethical journalism takes its course. It is nothing short of heroic to put up, or in this case, revive a press council, given that journalism lacks the characteristic of a profession like medicine or law, whose members are morally and legally bound by its rules and regulations in their practice. Journalists, in contrast, are the disparate lot whose access to journalism is not restricted by a professional body to ensure its independence. But that independence, by and large, has been taken out of context by many of our colleagues. Just because the press is free doesn't mean it can report, write, or publish anything it wants. Admittedly, some of us in media do not always do a good job and don't perform well. We don't live up to our own standards as a watchdog for the public we serve. Can we now blame if the public views us with distrust and ask who is watching the watchdog? Thus, your effort today to revive the PPI Press Council is in the right direction to correct that negative perception of journalists and media. It is an avenue for redress for any breach of the code of ethics we ourselves crafted. As a parting word, to underscore the formidable challenge you face, let me quote journalist and author Bob Woodward of the famous water scandal on his take on media accountability. It is easy to agree on the principles of ethical journalism, but applying them in real life is harder. Because, he said, the goal to reveal the truth can sometimes clash with the duty to limit harm. It is up to journalists and editors to choose how to act in such situations. Ladies and gentlemen, it's your call now. Good afternoon.
Thanks, Chairman, for the insightful and motivating and encouraging opening remarks on media accountability. Chairman, meron akong tanong sa'yo. I remember we had a long talk in the office about the topic ng Press Council. Such a wonderful conversation we had in the office. Ang tanong ko po, what do you think what will make it work if at all we're going to establish press councils outside Metro Manila? Because we talked about the challenges and even convening members of the council and other stakeholders as well.
Well, my take on that is that if everyone should come into this, well, tama yung ginawa na sa Cebu. You involve the consumers, the news consumers. This is the public and other sectors that's really involved in the media. Ang ano lang dito is that there should be some, if not by law, at least moral, merong force to keep them in the fold. Kasi kung hindi, kung tayo among us journalists, it's very easy. But other sectors involved, medyo mahirap. Hindi mo sila mapipilit kung ayaw nila. So, ang suggestion ko, as we have discussed, Ariel, if there should be some sort of a covenant wherein everyone in the community sign up, at least in sectors, no? Then somehow there'll be a moral obligation on their part to follow what you are trying to establish. Ang ano ko na lang dito, siguro, just so there will not be duplication in what we are doing as a PPI member, if we can just, at saka para yung council na you're gonna set up, they just should be true to their mandate. They should keep their existence as a media or as a mediation mechanism. Because if you spread yourself too much thin into so many activities, ang mangyayari niyan, there'll be duplication in all other works. So, at saka mawawala ka ng focus. So, if you really would like to have really a good council, talagang focus dito sa mandate nila, then other activities can be given to other organizations that can handle that.
Yeah.
That's
Chairman,
my own.
Finally, you suggested like a people's movement. I remember, but of course, people do not know about this. People in the meeting room, those who are watching right now. Ano po yung movement na sinasabi na to get people to really be involved in this council?
Well,
because you mentioned covenant, right?
yes. Well, yun na nga, by community, because what I understand is that you're going to establish in each region, or at least in urban areas na meron talagang active media, you're going to put up this covenant. Kaya kailangan yung lahat ng sectors, the public, business, government, and of course, media, there'll be some sort of an agreement that they will abide by the mandate that for the existence, continued existence of this council. Otherwise, pag umalis, kung hindi sila susunod, isa lang ang hindi sumunod dyan. Wala na yung prinsipyo ng ng council.
Ng council, yeah.
Oo. So ang mahalaga diyan, kung isang community, mahirap kasi kung buong Pilipinas By community, at least merong pressure sa bawat sectors na that will sign in the covenant.
Yeah.
So that more or less is my thought on this.
Yeah.
But it's up to you guys. It's up to you guys to determine what's best for your.
Very well said, Chairman. Thanks very much for joining us today. And thank you for your insights as well as we talked about media credibility and the Philippine press or the press council. Now, like to have or introduce to you one of the project directors of Hans Seidel Foundation on behalf of Attorney Guts Heineke, Caroline Lee. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Ariel. Thank you. Good afternoon to everyone. I'm Caroline Lee, Program Coordinator of the Hans Seidel Foundation. Mr. Guts Heineke would have wanted to be able to greet you personally, but he's unavailable today. So I'll just extend a few words about the Hans Seidel Foundation. This is a German non-government organization which has been working in the Philippines for more than 40 years now, with head office in Munich, Germany. And we mainly cooperate with local partners, local organizations in various projects. And one of these organizations, of course, is the Philippine Press Institute. We're really proud to be working with the Philippine Press Institute because the Hans Seidel Foundation, we work towards building democracy and good governance. And it is through the, you can see through the work of the Philippine Press Institute, our project activities together with the PPI, they illustrate more concretely what these big words actually are. So, and today's topic, the media accountability, is actually very relevant. Especially, I see it as a very good response of the PPI in the face of information, misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation, which has been a prevalent topic that we have been taking up in several activities. And media accountability in media, as Sir Rolly just mentioned, it contributes to ethical journalism, to professional journalism, responsible journalism. These, I feel, comprise genuine journalism, which is invaluable. And genuine journalism is maybe one of the ingredients that makes democracy possible. So, and I thank Ms. Marit Tabugon for sharing that article on the recognition of the Cebu Citizens Press Council of the PPI's initiative for this activity. Prior to that, I wasn't aware of the history behind it. And to the Press Council, I understand the Philippine Press Council has its roots from way back in 1965 when the first Press Council was established, and it has gone through so much evolution, if you can call it that. So it's been a long journey, and I really I find it admirable for PPI, for media practitioners, to take it upon themselves to establish that sense of accountability, to promote self-regulation, and that I feel contributes to the integrity of the media, the press, especially in the face of the current media landscape, in the past, it used to be Trimedia, and now we have this social media, which is very, very broad. And it really is encouraging to see that the Philippine Press Institute, the PPI, is taking a proactive step in this respect. So, and thank you earlier, Ariel, for reminding everyone to like our Facebook page. It's true that we have quite a lineup of activities with the PPI. You would be interested to participate in them in the future, and it would also help us to disseminate about these activities and help more people to be increasingly aware of the topics that we're taking up. So, and if I may just add, we have at the end of this activity an online survey. We'd like to request you to please participate in this survey. It will help us have a better idea how we can better improve our future activities, or what you might feel would be topics we can also cover. Of course, that could be taken up with the PPI. Okay, so I'm looking forward to a very interesting, very informative 5 sessions of discussions. And I'm sure you're also very much excited for it. So let me just end there. Thank you very much, Ariel.
Thanks, Carol, for joining us today, and I hope you stand by until the end of the program. Ayun, Joy, sabi ni Carol, big words daw. Credibility, media accountability, press council. Now is the time to break them down, di ba? Please welcome our seminar director, also news editor of Manila Standard, very good friend, Joyce Pañares. Hi, Joyce.
Hi, Ariel. Hi, Carol. Thank you so much for that statement earlier on behalf, of course, of Mr. Heineke. I would also like to thank our chairman, Mr. Rolly Estabilio. Actually, what I wanted to say before I call on our first speaker, I think it's a sobering and humbling statement that we heard from our chairman and also as well as from Carol, underscoring the importance of introspection as to our failings as an industry and the challenges that we face amid an erosion of trust in the media and a rise in disinformation and misinformation. But still, it is a call to action for us to do what we can as individual journalists and also as an industry. So without further ado, I'm very happy to call. He's actually my former boss, Lasal. Nako, ito ang kumuha sa akin para magturo sa DLSU. Si Professor Gary Mariano, former chairperson of the Philippine Press Council. He will be talking about the need for a local press council as a means for accountability and self-regulation, and how does it work. Professor Gary, good afternoon po.
Hello, good afternoon. Okay.
Hi, sir.
Kumusta ka na? Yeah.
Okay lang po.
So, do I start now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, please.
So, Ariel, will you let me share? I have a few slides to show.
Yeah. Care, screen share, please. Yeah.
Go ahead. Okay, so magandang hapon sa lahat. Actually, pinakailaman ko yung assignment sa akin ni Ariel, because I was asked to talk on the topic of local media councils as a means for accountability and self-regulation. Pinakailaman ko yung title. Ginawa ko siyang shared regulation or co-regulation. Okay. So my slide should show overview. I don't know if you're seeing the overview slide now. Okay, so I was asked to speak for 30 minutes on the topic, and I think...
Sir, sorry, ang naka-flash po ngayon ay speaker's notes. So we have...
Yeah. Okay, so yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
So I was asked to speak for 30 minutes on this subject, although my original assignment was for 20 minutes. So I will talk about partly because of my experience as a head of the press council in between 2004 and 2008 when it was most active, and then my own learnings from that experience, and from, of course, from additional readings and interaction. Okay, so I will propose at the end a local media council, or actually it's an alternative to a national, the big national press council. Okay, and of course there will be many forms of a press council. Cebu has one. The people in Baguio have been organizing something. There were also attempts in other places like Bacolod, Cagayan, General Santos, Davao, Palawan, various levels of success and shortcomings. Okay, so let me proceed. All right. First of all, we understand that press freedom is something that is protected by the Constitution under the bigger right of self-expression. So, and we liken democracy, press freedom with democracy, and we understand press freedom as two basic freedoms. Number one is from prior restraint, and second is from punishment. Freedom from punishment for non-malicious publication. The lawyers will be familiar with the term freedom from punishment for harmless publications. Okay, binago ko yon kasi sometimes what journalists do actually hurts other people, but it can be protected, a type of protected speech. No, so it's now punishment for non-malicious publication. Okay, so what is accountability? Accountability roots is rooted in the fact that freedom that we enjoy is not absolute, especially because others have right to. And on the part of journalists, accountability is proven by the fact that journalism is a journalism of verification. So I borrow this term from Kovac and Rosenstiel. Okay, so journalists show proof, they verify, they attribute, they fact check. Okay, so hindi po bago itong activity ng fact checking, no? Trabaho na ito ng mga journalists, actually pati ng mga scientists, ng mga scholars, to show proof of what they're doing. Okay, so yung mga sa reporters, kailangan nila sabihin na yung sino yung source nila, ano yung sinabi ng source nila, to show proof that something actually was said or something actually happened. But as we know, because of given the rush for deadlines, journalists are not perfect. And despite the posturings of some people, they are not omniscient, okay? And they're also not omnipotent. Sometimes they cause harm, injury, damage to reputation and to ego. Now, some of us may be familiar with a childhood song, a ditty that sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never harm me. I beg to disagree with that, no? Kasi sa totoo lang, merong mga nakakasakit. No? And according to a 2005 British rock band, no, yung Baby Shambles, no, they have this song, sticks and stones may break my bones, oh, but your words, they really kill me. No? So in other words, pwedeng makasakit itong mga sinasabi natin. No? And journalists should be able to recognize their mistakes voluntarily or when they are called out. No? And who's going to do the calling out? People from the crowd, the news sources, the news subjects, and the general public. Okay? And we are reminded by Kovac and Rosenstein that the journalist's first loyalty is to citizens. Okay. So ano tong pag-uusapan natin dito, no? Itong accountability nito is another one form of accountability is through the right of reply. Okay? So pag may sinabi ka, may na-offend or may na-disagree, fairness calls or fairness, good faith, humility, respect, professionalism calls for you to recognize that right of reply. Okay. Now later on, I will talk about two types of right of reply. No, meron yung tinatawag na mandatory. Okay, there is currently a bill in the House of Representatives calling for a legislated, statutory, obligatory, and court enforceable right of reply. On the other hand, we can have something that is voluntary, something that emanates from the good faith and from the ethical beliefs of the media, okay, for a voluntary form of right of reply. Now, ano itong mga right of replies na ito? No? Sometimes they can take the form of correction. Okay, nakamali yung spelling, nakamali yung pangalan, or an alternative account. Okay, the press presented one view, a news source or another person in the public may have an alternative account of what happened. Okay, or sometimes simply an explanation, clarification, giving context, and sometimes we have to make room for PR people providing a spin. Kasama sila sa right of reply, okay, or any general response from the public, especially those who are involved in the news, no? Particularly yung mga news subjects. Okay? Most of the time, they are public officials, they're politicians, they are big business persons. Okay. So, tatlong klase itong tinitingnan nating regulation. No? One is state regulation, the other is self-regulation, and a third concept that I want to talk about is co-regulation. Of course, yung mga nag-aral sa inyo ng psychology, alam na yun that co-regulation is a psychological concept. However, in this case, I will use that to mean shared responsibility for regulating. Okay, so in state regulation, the state alone is responsible for regulating. Okay, and I would like to show two examples, pwede maging tatlo, of how the state is actually regulating the media and can regulate the media. So the first example, the mandatory right of reply, is a threat. No? Pwede kasi pag na-approvehan to ng Congress at in-approve ng presidente, this will become law. House Bill 5185 will probably not materialize, okay? Kasi malapit nang matapos ang mag-convene ng Congress. But this mandatory right of reply has been around for ages. No? Yung mga mas makakatanda sa akin will remember this series of bills filed in earlier Congresses. Okay, and I'd like to bring your attention to the penalties ranging from fines up to imprisonment terms. Okay, prison terms. Okay, so yun ang hindi maganda sa state regulation. Laging merong threats of fines and even imprisonment. Okay. A second form of state regulation is libel. Okay, so most of you are already familiar with libel, pero ang i-highlight lang natin dito, ano yung penalty imposed, no, for traditional libel? It's anywhere from 6 months and 1 day to 4 years and 2 months. So, tignan nyo, no? Actually, kahit sabihin natin maiksi, 6 months lang pala yan, no? I don't think 2 days in prison is a pleasant vacation, no? So, isipin nyo na, pwede kayong makulong for traditional libel. Now, let's take a look at this creature called cyber libel. Part of RA 10175, no? 101,750, yung Cybercrime Prevention Act. Okay, it calls for a higher penalty for libel, for cyber libel. Okay, so dating prison correctional sa printed libel, yung analog type of libel, kapag ito ay nagawa sa pamamagitan ng smartphone, laptop, or any digital device, you're liable for this type of penalty. And it is 1 degree higher. So yung dating hanggang 4 years, ngayon pwedeng umabot ng 8 years. Imagine for one lousy tweet, pwede kang makulong ng ganitong kahaba. So we don't want state regulation. So the idea is to push for something that is more on the self-regulation idea. Okay? Nabanggit kanina na itong Carol did her background research, no? Nakita niya na yung Press Council ay nagsimula noong 1965, no? There was a law, RA 4363. This is actually an amendment to the libel cases, no? This law says that libel cases cannot be filed de officio. Ibig sabihin, ang pwede lang mag-file ng libel case ay yung victim mismo at hindi yung kamag-anak, hindi yung kaibigan, no? And then Section 3 of this law says that in order for this act to take effect, kailangan daw magkaroon ng press council. Okay? And I'd like to highlight words, no? Newspaper men, journalists in the Philippines shall organize and elect the members of a Philippine Press Council. And their function would be to promulgate a code of ethics and to investigate violations thereof and censure any newspaperman. No? Hindi pa uso yung gender-sensitive language ito. Newspaperman or newspaper guilty of the violation of that code. Maganda sana to kasi yung PPI, which was founded a year earlier, 1964, took this up and created the Philippine Press Council. No? Pero parang nag-iinit pa lang yung makina ng PPC, the Press Council, nagkaroon ng martial law. Okay? Now, during martial law, Marcos introduced free councils. No? Very quickly, in 1972, there was the Mass Media Council. Yung iba sa inyo, natatandaan niyo pa siguro yan. And then the 1973, nagkaroon ng Media Advisory Council. I was in high school at this time, but I would hear newspaper editors. So my mother used to work in a newspaper, and sinasama niya ako doon. And some of the newspaper editors were saying, anong advice ang pwede ibigay sa akin ng military? No? So mainit ang ulo nila. And then in 1974, nagkaroon ng twin councils, the PCPM, Philippine Council for Print Media, and then the Broadcast Media Councils. Now, mind you, none of these martial law councils were concerned with ethics and self-regulation. No? They were part of the martial law apparatus, okay, mechanism, just simply to regulate the media by controlling licensing. Okay? So in effect, sila nagbibigay ng permits to operate. Okay? Now, after the EDSA Revolution, 1987, 1993, there were revivals on the part of the PPI. So reorganized yung PPI, and I think 1993, binalik na yung Press Council. And then 1997, the PPI adopted a code of ethics, which is now shared by other organizations like the National Press Council, the NUJP, and it's Jonathan, and then even the College Editors Guild. Okay, and then in 2001, nagkaroon ng expansion yung Press Council. So dating newspaper men lang, nagsama sila ng outsiders. Okay, at yung outsiders na yun, nag-imbita sila ng abogado, represented from the legal sector, from the business sector, and then from academe. Okay? And I found myself involved with this. No? Titingnan ko, ang Lasal, wala naman journalism program. No? Sabi ko, bakit hindi yung mga taga-UP ang inimbita? Okay? There was another reason for that. Okay? Kasi ang meetings na namin ay ginagawa sa Intramuros at ang UP ay malayo sa Intramuros. Sabi ng mga taga-UP, ikaw yung nandyan sa Lasal, malapit ka lang, umuo ka na kay Ariel. No? All right. So how does the Press Council work, or how did it work? Okay. Ariel, di ko na matanda kailan ako sumali sa Press Council, no? But I was chairman between 2004 and 2008.
Yeah,
okay. So
that,
this is how
you were already involved, sir, representing academe.
Yes. Tapos nag-resign yung ating chairman kasi we had a high-profile case. Actually, this is embarrassing for the Press Council kasi hindi na-resolve yung kaso. No? Si Ambassador Romulo yun. At tapos merong isang columnist. Okay? Hindi pa uso yung term na pasaway. Pero yung columnist, dinhead mo yung si ambassador. So nag-file ng libel case. I think it was for 200 million pesos, no? Okay, and it was seen as a failure on the part of the press council. Okay, and then doon ako na-involved ng gusto. So paano yung proseso ng press council, no? This is how we adopted it. First, of course, ang simula nito, mayroong article, may column or series of columns. Okay? Pag hindi nasayahan yung news subject, yung pinag-uusapan doon sa column, sa article, pwede siyang gumawa ng sulat, okay? Or a reply. Okay? So yung reply, pwede i-publish kung magnanimous yung newspaper. Okay? Pag pinablish yung reply, tapos yung kaso. Pag hindi, pwedeng dalhin yan sa press council. Okay? Now, yung press council, pwedeng i-dismiss yung complaint, no? For some reasons. Pero normally, the press council would ask or direct the publication to publish the reply. Okay? So pag sumunod yung publication upon the instance of the press council, tapos na rin yung kaso because we require the complainants to execute some kind of waiver na kapag sinunod ng press council at sinunod ng publication ng kahilingan nila, wala nang kaso-kaso. Okay, so case resolved. Okay. However, as had happened, okay, sometimes the publication might ignore the press council itself. Okay, and meron pang memories tayo ng ganyan, no? So ang penalty dito ay censure. Okay, the other press council members in their own publications, marami sila, would publish the reply. Okay. Now let's go to the pluses and minuses of this setup. Okay. So ano muna yung tingnan natin yung advantage, no? Yung press council ay naging multisectoral, no? So yung ang setup kasi ng press council originally was the national newspapers represented on the PPI board, no? Tama ba yun, Ariel?
Correct. Yeah.
Yung definition ng press council kasama yung ng national titles, andun yung Business World, Malaya, Manila Standard, Inquirer, Journal, Philippine Star, at saka Manila Times.
Ang kaibahan lang, sir, ang members ng council are the gatekeepers, the editors, while dun sa board, normally the publishers, they own. Publishers.
Yes. So, pero ang representation yan per newspaper.
Per newspaper, okay, correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then sometime later, the trustees from Luzon, I will use the statistical term, Luzon Balance, no, outside of Manila, became automatically members of the council also. So Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. So si Attorney Doresa became the trustee for Mindanao, and I think right now it's Ami, no? Okay, so nagkaroon ng ganong representation. Hindi ko alam sino yung nauna sa akin o may nauna sa akin, but after I left, I think Professor Khan took over. So business, there was Chief Salazar of FINMA.
Yeah.
And then sa legal community, we had the late Justice Mabutas, and then he was succeeded by Attorney Lavinia. Okay. Ito yung mga disadvantage na na-encounter ko. No? Number one, yung non-press representatives were viewed as outsiders kasi sila ay naimbitahan. Hindi sila pinadala. You get the point, no?
Yeah.
Whereas, let's say, the IBP, for instance, would say, ito yung aming magiging representative. Okay? Ang ginagawa kasi ng PPI noon, mag-iimbita talaga ng tao. Okay? So this was the choice even of the PPI. So this is really a Press Institute initiative. Okay. Second was, narinig natin ito, paulit-ulit, it was perceived as an old boys club. So nakita ko sa chat kanina si Alex nagtanong, no, kung kaalyado ng isang publication, isang politician, pwede bang malakas na siya doon? Pwede. Okay? So ito nga yun, and this is part of the reputation that the press council had. No? Third was the lack of cooperation. May mga tinatawag tayong pasaway, hindi mauubos yan. No? And this was always a headache kasi nga walang compulsion, walang coercion. Remember, this is an ethics body, no? Partly an ethics body. So wala tayo nung enforcement capabilities na kagaya ng nasa batas, no? So last point, no teeth. Okay? And then fourth, there were notable non-members, especially the non-PPI publications, Manila Bulletin, Business Mirror, Daily Tribune. Okay? And then fifth, parang hindi natin na-anticipate yung Rappler at saka yung KBP. No? Of course, may sarili silang mundo, pero ang PPI was a print-only establishment. Okay? And then fourth, pang-ilan ba to? Second to last, poor attendance. Nung una kami nagmi-meeting lunchtime, okay? Sa akin, hindi problema yung lunchtime. As I mentioned, nasa Lasal ako, punta ako yung Tramuros, less than 30 minutes nandun ako. No? Yung mga kasama ko, yung iba manggagaling sa Intramuros area din, pero meron manggagaling sa Balito Drive, yung manggagaling sa Makati, no? So hindi biro yun. Plus the fact na hapon ito, tanghali, alam natin pag dumating yung deadline time. So kalahati ng mga editors dito distracted. O kaya, hindi mag-a-attend na lang. So we had a problem with meeting quorum. No? So nagkaroon ng creative solution, yung ibang editors sinabi lang, gawin natin sa gabi pagkatapos nagsimula na yung printing, no? After the paper has been put to bed. Okay? So 9 p.m., medyo natatawa ako sa memories na ito kasi 9 p.m. makikita kami sa isang madilim at maingay na bar sa Mabini. Okay? We got things done, no? Pero pag kunyari, ang hirap siguro ipaliwanag ito sa complainant, no? Na doon pinag-usapan yung kaso nila. Parang sabihin, Mabini pa rin niya kahit anong sabihin niyo, no? Mabini area, doon kayo nag-meeting. Okay? Alright. Balik ko. Wala pang Zoom noon, Alex. Okay. And then lastly, no teeth. Kahit anong gawing censure ng isang publication, ng isang press council, kasi ganito yun, di ba? Bigay tayo ng isang example. Inquirer, hindi sumunod sa press council. So lahat ng mga other titles are free to publish the reply in their own publication. So 7 yan, 6 na publications maglalabas niya. But it's not the same. Okay? Sa Inquirer lumabas yung article ko eh. Bakit yung article tungkol sa akin kung saan ako siniraan? Bakit ko sila babasahin sa Manila Standard, no? Hindi siguro tama yung proseso na 'yon. Okay? So we realized that kind of disadvantage. Okay? Balik tayo dito. So this idea of co-regulation or shared regulation, mamaya maririnig natin yung kwento ng Cebu, okay? At saka ng Cordillera, no? Meron akong ilang suggestions. Number one, do we still use the word press or media? Okay? General media. Kasi yung press parang masyadong dated, no? Printing press. Paki-show of hands nga sa mga estudyante sa atin dyan, no? Kung ilan sa inyo ang nakabasa na ng dyaryo this week, yung dyaryo as in printed newspaper. Show of hands lang. Gusto ko lang makita kung meron pa nakakita sa inyo ng dyaryo, ang nagbasa sa inyo ng newspaper. No? So siguro, instead of calling it the press council, siguro mas gawin nating wider scope, no? To include media, the term media. Okay. Second is, the media council doesn't have to be a national media council. Okay. I will still support the idea of PPI, preaching the good news of the press council, no? Pero hindi na kailangan central authority, no? Lahat nasa Manila. Okay? Okay, pwede ito maging regional or provincial or city. Okay? Meron kayo ng Cordillera Citizens Media Council. Pwede na magkaroon specific the Benguet Media Council or just kung talagang kung gusto nila Baguio City Media Council, no? And kaya sinasabi natin shared regulation kasi inclusive na siya. So, alphabetical lang siguro to roughly, no? Andiyan yung academe, business, civil society, civic organizations, the church, legal community, and the media. I read that there are some Kasi nga iba-iba yung models ng media councils, no? Meron mga media councils na professional media lang, walang outsiders. Okay? At meron din ako nakita na talagang community media council lang, walang professional media involved. So, kumbaga, hindi nila sinasali ang media dito. Okay? But if you really want to be inclusive, I would suggest na isama yung media, no? In all forms, print, broadcast, online, and yes, isama natin ang social media. Kasi dito nangyayari yung mga maraming hiwaga ngayon, no? sa Facebook. Okay. And then maybe I can add some legislative wishes, no? Wish lists. Number one is, pwede kasing gamitin yung arbitration or mediation na pang-iwas libel. Okay? So, if we can propose, if the communities can propose to the lawmakers that kasi meron ng batas ngayon that requires arbitration, yung settlement before going to court. Pero going to specific to libel na bago mo i-libel ang isang reporter, kung merong media council, dumaan ka muna doon. Okay? So magiging requirement na siya. Kung merong media council. And then, kakambal nito, this functioning media council can strengthen, bolster the argument for the decriminalization of libel and cyber libel that Jonathan will talk about later. Okay, and let me end by this little diagram. No, I'm calling it "good begets good." Okay, so a working right of reply, voluntary right of reply mechanism can mean two things. No, one is fewer libel suits. Okay, and then if there are fewer libel suits, we can actually demand, okay, pressure government to decriminalize libel. Okay, so civil tort na lang siya. And then it can also be a safeguard against right of reply legislation. Kasi sabihin natin, maandar naman eh. So wag na nating pakialaman yan. Actually, in 2007, so matagal na, buhay pa si Senator Pimentel, si Nene Pimentel, we had this little victory. No, I think we celebrated this kasi inatras ni Senator Pimentel yung kanyang right of reply bill. Okay, after meeting with the press council, no? At sinasabi namin, sige, we will try our best to push for the right of reply. Okay? Now, voluntary right of reply can also have other good effects, no? Like greater trust in the media. Okay? So hindi na sabihin, old boys club yan, sila lang yan, no? Magkakaayusan yan. So there will be greater trust in the media because you have a working press council. The good effect of that would be increased news consumption. That can mean more revenues, more circulation, sales, advertising revenues for the newspapers, and it can translate to media independence. Okay, so I will end here. So thank you very much sa inyo.
Okay, thank you, Professor Gary. You raised several insights, beginning with how should we call this group? Should we call it a press council or a media council? And of course, the name will eventually define us as well, pati ang ating members, kung sino ba yung mga dapat kasama. Ang daming thought-provoking statements kanina ni Prof. Gary. Like, gusto ko yung diagram mo sa dulo, sir, na good begets good. Na if we hold ourselves accountable and be responsible, it redounds to...
May balik.
May balik eh. May balik. We regain the trust that we lost. We avoid cases, etc. So yun. Now, to give us a concrete view from the ground, these are we have two people involved in existing press councils outside Metro Manila. And just to clarify, we have 80 plus people joining us in our Zoom room, and I don't know how many more sa ating Facebook kung naka-live stream ito. This is just the Luzon leg of this discussion. So we will eventually have another one for Visayas. and then another one for Mindanao. So I'd like to call, actually dalawa sila for session 2. First one would be Cherry Ann Lim to discuss the experience of Cebu. Hello, Cherry. The Cebu Citizens Press Council.
Hello,
Cherry, pa-unmute lang. Hello.
Unmute.
Hello.
Hello.
Ayan. Thank you.
My slides.
Yeah. Screen share. Yeah.
Kumusta ba ang press council sa Cebu, Chair? Isog man ng mga media sa Cebu, oy.
Isog.
Nakapag-debate pa ba doon?
Oh.
Can you see it?
No, not yet.
Not yet. Share screen lang.
Oh, I have to click on that.
Yeah, you have to click.
Click the share screen. There you go.
Yan. Ayan. Tapos,
click mo yung presentation.
Hindi ako pogi!
wala, may nagsasalita.
Si Sir Rolly yon, yung apo niya siguro.
Si Sir Rolly pala.
Alam ko yung tawang yon. There you go, sir.
Ayun.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, this is the name of our press council. It's Cebu Citizens Press Council, and I would like to draw your attention to this hyphen here to show you that there are citizens, here ordinary citizens, and members of the press. Okay, and the very important thing here is our tagline. Being accountable comes with being free. We always remind our journalists that since we have press freedom, we should also be accountable for every word that we say and every word that we broadcast. So the first thing people would want to know is what is the purpose of the CCPC? So number one, as has been mentioned by our speakers earlier, it is a platform for airing grievance. So can you see the cursor? If I point to anything, can you see it?
Not really. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am, we can see the cursor.
Yeah, closer to the screen, we can. Yeah.
So first purpose is a platform for airing grievance. So as mentioned already by our speakers earlier, it provides an added means of redress for aggrieved news sources and other media consumers, because it's to some extent unavoidable that sometimes we write something that would displease our news sources. So we need to give them a platform for airing their grievance, because our aim is to discourage lawsuits and, of course, violence against journalists. If they feel that they have no other resort, then they will really file a libel case for the journalist, which is what we're trying to avoid. So we accept complaints. The council accepts complaints, but we just narrow it down to two types of complaints, and these are complaints regarding accuracy and right of reply. It's also a forum for media issues. So there are many issues affecting media. So we discuss these issues in the council. And the whole idea is we want to let people know what our position is. We want to help shape the public opinion and, more importantly, policy on those issues, because we are the ones who will be affected if those ever become policy. Later, I will show you some examples. We're an advocate of press freedom. So we watch out for any bills, any movements that may affect press freedom, and we make sure that our position is heard. We want to take a clear position in defending that freedom. We're also a catalyst for journalists' welfare. So we either initiate or support plans and programs that benefit journalists. So these may involve their economic welfare, advancement in their craft, and enhancement of their sense of professionalism and accountability. So you see, this one is very important. We want to improve our own professionalism and accountability, and the members of the council are aware of that. Now, what is the composition of the press council? You'll see here on the left side, media members. And then on the right side, non-media members. So half of the members, I was telling you earlier about our name. It's citizens, and then there's a hyphen in the press. So it's a collaboration between the two. So let's first go on the left side here, the media members. So of the 15 members, 7 are members of media. So we have representatives from the daily newspapers, 1 each, and you have the kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas. So there are 2 representatives there for radio and TV. So whoever is the chairman or chairman and vice president, and vice chairman, because I think they change their officers every 2 years. Whoever is the sitting KBP chairman and vice chairman, they are the automatic members of the press council. So the broadcast industry is represented in the council. Here on the right side, we have what's called the public members, which are ordinary people. They are not media members. So in fact, all our officers now are ordinary citizens. None of them is a member of the media. So just to give you an idea, I don't know if it will tell you something about our council, but our president now is a psychiatrist. Our vice president is a business leader. Our secretary is the dean of a law school. Our treasurer is a priest. And the other 2 members are representatives of civic groups. Here in the middle, you might be wondering, what is this semi-media? We allocated 2 slots for members of the academy. And we call them semi-media because they are instructors or coordinators of the mass communication and journalism programs of the various schools here. So they're sort of media, they understand the word of media, but they are attached to the academy. So here you see the membership is not just media members. We have ordinary citizens as members. Oops, I forgot to indicate that they're on top. 15 members, of which 7 are media members, 6 are ordinary citizens, and 2 are academic members. This just to show you what the media landscape is like in Cebu. We had 5 daily newspapers, that's down to 4. CDN is now digital, but it's still a member. And we have 14 radio stations, 22 FM radio stations, and 3 TV stations represented by the KBP. Now, the problem normally when you have a group is that you have to have meetings and you must have a forum. So then there's, like it was mentioned earlier, there are problems of people attending. So to solve that problem, in the structure itself, we already made a provision for substitutes, whom we call the associate members. So it's very simple. For example, I am from Sunstar, Cebu newspaper. I'm representing Sunstar. If for any reason I can't join for that day, I just send someone else from Sunstar. It's like that, very simple. And that goes for everyone else, even for the public members. Let's say the priest, if he can't go, he can send another priest, even just another ordinary citizen. So when you count, there's always a forum. The meeting always moves forward. This is a picture of our Marcelo B. Fernandez Cebu Press Center. I think some of you have been there. This is where we hold our meetings. We hold it there most of the time. So if you are drafted as a member, what is expected of you? You need to know. So first of all, you are required to attend the quarterly and month meetings. So that means in a year, the council will only meet 4 times. Very light because everybody is busy. We don't want we don't want the council to be a burden and for people not to join because it has too many requirements. So actually there are only 4 meetings a year and it's always a luncheon and you have to eat, right? So part of it is eating and then the rest of it is the meeting. And if invited, there will be small group preparatory meetings ahead of the full unbanked quarterly meeting, because usually in the unbanked meeting, we have a resolution that we propose for approval by the 15-member council. So before that, there's a small meeting some of the members of the council, we even invite other people. We decide, let's say, what is our position on this media issue? Then we decide how are we going to go about it, so that by the time of the quarterly meeting, we have something to present for the body to approve. So not everyone in the council will be invited. And we will serve for free. So we tell you at the outset, don't expect any honorarium. Everybody there works for free. We're all volunteers. Now, this is the complaints route. I was saying earlier, we accept complaints regarding two matters, and one is the accuracy, and the second one is the right of reply. So that building I was showing you earlier, that is also where our secretariat is. So if there is a complaint, it will be sent there. And then the secretariat will forward it to the executive director, who ever since the beginning of our press council is attorney Archico Ciares, who happens to be with the Sunstar newspaper. So it goes to the executive director. He looks at it. If it's a complaint against broadcast media, he will send it directly to the KBP Standards Authority. They will be the one to address that. However, if it is regarding print media, he will send it here down to a screening panel. He will form a group of 2 to 3 people. That would include him already. So, and he will get 2 other people from the council to look at it to see if should we entertain this? Is this something for us to do? Is there mediation that we can do at this point? Okay. If it goes beyond that, then he can form a review board of 3 to 5 people who are not among the 2 to 3 people here earlier who were part of the screening panel. And then, whatever they decide, they will submit it to the CCPC Anbang for approval. Anyway, you don't have to be so, you don't have to look at this so intently unless you're really interested in having something like this. But we have more details on this in our press council website. I will show you where it is. So, just looking at this process, I will tell you that it is already a deterrent by the journalists to, it is a deterrent to be inaccurate in their writing and to not give the right of reply. Why do I say that? Because our executive director is connected with Sunstar. And at one time, I was the deputy director. So the complaints will be sent to us. So I'm from Sunstar. Imagine what if I receive a complaint against our rivals, like against the Freeman, against Cebu Daily News. That's very nakakahiya, isn't it? But I'm bound by confidentiality, so I will not tell anyone what complaints I received and who the offending outlet is. So, but you, as a rival outlet, you wouldn't want me to know that someone is complaining against you, right? So it's already a deterrent even at that stage. Nobody wants to violate because I will know what your violations are if somebody will complain. What are the basic requirements for making a complaint? I think some of them were already mentioned earlier. The complaint of the offending of the news source must first be sent to the offending news outlet. Because he is supposed to address it first. And only if the complainant deems that the news outlet did not satisfactorily address his complaint by clarification, correction, or apology, only then will the press council entertain your complaint. But the news outlet should entertain that first. So how do we can't tell if he has originally sent it to the news outlet. So what I do when I receive a complaint, I send it to the news outlet concerned. And normally in a few days, if it's right of reply, I immediately see that they responded because I can already see that they interviewed the other side. Because sometimes one complainant is saying, you didn't even get my side, you just ran that story, it's derogatory to me, you never even bothered to interview me. So I sent a complaint to that offending news outlet. In a few days, I see that they already interviewed the person. So it's been resolved. They act very quickly. And the one who's complaining should enclose the complaint with the complaint, the clippings of the published material. So we will know what you are complaining about. The specification of your grievance, the details of when it is published. And there is a waiver of the right to sue. If we will entertain your complaint, you cannot anymore sue that publication. So what else do we do? I was saying earlier that I'll give you examples of the ways in which we give our positions on certain media issues. So we have passed a number of resolutions on media concerns since our formation in 2005, because it was in 2005, September 2005, that the CCPC was launched. So just to give an example, we have opposed a proposed ordinance by the Cebu provincial government. They were proposing to ban tabloids. And we said, I think they were not aware that the tabloid refers first also to the size of the newspaper. And outside Metro Manila, I think most, if not all, of the publications are tabloid in size. So if this were to go through, it would be like genocide. None of the publications would continue to exist. So of course we opposed that proposed ordinance. And there were also moves by our local legislators, the councils, to summon journalists to explain what they wrote or broadcast. It's like being summoned to the Senate or the Congress, and we opposed that because we said, why do we need to explain what we wrote? What we wrote is enough. Just read it again. So we opposed that. And then we also opposed the legislative right of reply. There were reasons indicated by Mr. Mariano earlier. We thought that there were impracticalities also. And the one he was referring to was a different version, but there are many other versions. And we also looked at what we considered to be draconian penalties like fines, imprisonment. And there are even some that say if it's already the third offense, there will be media closure, which is a little bit exaggerated, a bit too much. So again, remember, we accept complaints on right of reply. So we are advocating giving the right of reply. So what we are opposed to is the legislated right of reply, because what we're advocating is the voluntary right of reply. And that's something we always hammer to our journalists. And we also opposed the libel provisions in the Cybercrime Prevention Act of 2012. We are not only always opposing, we also supported some measures, which are the passage of the Freedom of Information Act, because it benefits not only media, but also everybody else. Because the Freedom of Information Act, it says any person, not just the media, can go and ask for information. So it benefits everybody. It's very good for democracy. And we also advocated the removal of imprisonment as a penalty for libel. So whenever we make our resolutions, we send copies of them to either the Senate or Congress, or whoever is the congressman who proposed that. This one is very important. Even though we meet only 4 times a year, we have a quarterly luncheon. This is the inside. I'm showing you photos of the inside of the press center where we meet. Very simple room. You see these tables here? We eat lunch there. We eat lunch there for like half an hour. And after that, we remove all our plates, and then we can proceed with the meeting. That's where we meet. And during those quarterly meetings, we don't just talk like that. No, we consult with certain sectors. So we are targeted in the sectors that we invite. We always invite the ones with whom we are currently in conflict over media coverage. Because sometimes the story is about this one, there's something about police, like that. That is the one that we are in conflict with. And another time, there was a series of stories on priests. Sometimes there are scandals. So we are covering them at this time. So whoever it is that we are covering, usually they don't like us. They consider us enemies, like we are mean. So they don't like to give us information. It is hard for us to get information from them. So whoever it is that we are having a conflict with, that is the one that we will invite to our quarterly meeting. And what we do is, before the meeting, let's say it's priests, we are inviting this meeting. So I would say, Father, we are going to invite 3 or 4 of you to our meeting. Please prepare a list of all your complaints against the media and present them during the meeting. But Father, I will tell you in advance that the media will also prepare a list of all our complaints against your sector. So during the meeting, that is what we do. It is an exchange of gripes. So the ones we are inviting will be the first to give the list of all their complaints against media. And then after, we will also tell them what our complaints are against them. What is the purpose of this? The purpose of this is when they give us their list of complaints, then we can respond and say, oh, okay, now we were not aware that you were complaining about this and that. Because sometimes it's the media who's at fault. Always going late to the press con. They complain about that. You are always calling us at different hours. We are sleeping. It's like, oh, okay. So we also are taking note of that. The pictures that are taken of them, they also have complaints sometimes. So whatever other complaints, we take note of them. And then we explain why media does the things that it does. And it helps to open their eyes and help them understand we are not being adversarial. We are just doing our work. And we give them advice on how they should deal with media so that they will not have any conflict with us. For example, for some sectors, they weren't even aware that they should have some sort of information officer so that we will not call everybody, all the departments in their office. So we said, you should, maybe you could designate information officer. Oh, they were enlightened. And it helped to improve our relations with one another. So basically, the whole point of that is just to be able to improve the access of information, the information flow between the two sectors. And I highly, 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 highly recommend it because it has always worked with all these sectors. When they get to talk to us, we answer all their questions. They get to understand, we're human, we're not robots trying to mow them down. So it always works. So I highly, highly, highly recommend that you do that during your meetings. It doesn't cost much. If we just have a very small meeting, at most we can have like 30, 50 people. So it's not very expensive. The other things that we do, that we have done is we have recorded or spread media issues and concerns through these magazines. So we have one magazine called the Civil Journalism and Journalists. It's only once a year. And here are some samples of the ones we have done through the years. So we tackle some media issues here. We have profiles of media personalities. We also feature the achievements of our media persons. So that's what we have every year. But when the pandemic happened, everybody ran indoors and the magazine also went online. So here below you see cebujournalism.org. That website was opened during the pandemic. So there is no physical copy now of the CJJ magazine. The articles, you can continue reading them at cebujournalism.org. We also spread media issues and concerns through video documentaries. Now, don't stress yourself out. This is hard work, so we don't do it all the time. So it's not every year. So we have had, let's say, topics on media corruption, how to cover the priests, killing journalists. So we had a conflict with the police, and this access denied. We did this because we had problems getting access to the prosecutors, judges. They wouldn't speak to us, even some local politicians. So we interviewed them. They're part of the documentary. Don't stress yourself out. You don't have to do this. It's just that our executive director is very prolific and full of ideas. And then one day, our executive director was thinking, why should we confine ourselves to talking about our media issues and activities in magazines and documentaries when we can do brick and mortar? So in 2010, the Cebu Citizens Press Council signed a memorandum of agreement with the Cebu provincial government, owner of the provincial museum, which is the Museo Cebu, for us to be able to use one room there, which is our media gallery, for free for 25 years. So in 2010, we set up the Cebu Journalism and Journalists Gallery, or CJJ Gallery. At the time, it was the only community media museum gallery in the country. So you see that this is the inside. We have some old printing equipment that are no longer used today. We have a wall board there on the evolution of new technology. Here, another wall. You have the incidents of harassment and violence against Cebu journalists. So this one is a big because he was killed by on the orders of the Cebu City Treasurer. He was a newspaper columnist and editor who exposed corruption in Cebu City Hall. So we have it there, so all the students, all the visitors to the museum will see what happened. Actually, the treasurer was convicted and really went to jail. Here you see some little photo frames of pre-war journalists. These are Cebu journalists. And on the other side, we have post-World War II journalists. And there's even a wall for information on the contemporary journalists. So I don't know, probably this is the only museum where you can see people featured who are still alive. Because normally museums feature dead people. So you have information, there is one wall there on contemporary journalists, press groups, and projects. So if you ever get to Cebu and happen to be in the museum, maybe you can check it out, the CJJ Gallery. We also promote media literacy. All these things are intended to help the other people who are not journalists understand what the media does and why we are doing these things. You have to be physically there for them to see you and see that you and they are not different. You are people. Because if they think that you are a robot and something else, it's very easy to shoot you. It's very easy to file libel cases against you because you're not like them. So you have to be visible. That's why we have the consultation with the various news sources. We also meet with we go to the Cebu Journal first. This one is virtual. We just have a little button there in our CCPC website called Cebu Journal, where there are posted there the laws and jurisprudence affecting media. So the idea of this is to educate students. There are journalism students who would want to know what are the laws pertaining to media. And it's also to educate fellow journalists. So they would know what are these laws and jurisprudence affecting media. But this button also contains the list of all the incidents that we are aware of, incidents of violence and harassment against Cebu media. So you can see there all the Cebu journalists who were killed, those who were harassed, is there. That is in our website. This one, conversation, is our interaction with the academia. So we just basically hook up with the Cebu Association of Communication Educators, which is the group of university professors of journalism and mass comm. We tied up with them so that every now and then a journalist or two will go to a certain school, and then usually they're the ones who want to pick the topic. So they want to talk about corruption or whatever about media, and we just go, okay, we'll go and talk about it. And then the teachers and the students can ask us. So it's a way for us to, again, be visible to them. They can get to know more about the media profession. CCPC has also been involved in initiating organizations related to media, such as the Cebu Media Legal Aid, or what we call SEMLA. This is a group of volunteer lawyers which was formed in 2006, just a year after the council was formed. Remember, I was saying that we make resolutions, we draft resolutions, and we put our position down on certain bills, and we send them to Congress. So the Cebu Media Legal Aid helps us with that. They are supposed to craft them, but now it's Tony Shares who crafts them, and they review. If they have any objections, they want to add something before we have that resolution adopted by the whole council. They have a look at it, just to review it. So, this one, it was not too difficult to form them. It's just a volunteer group. And the reason it's not difficult to form them is that many of these are columnists. They are lawyers who are opinion columnists of newspapers. So they understand the work of media. So they were very glad to help. we invite them also regularly during the quarterly luncheons. And the CCPC also supports organizations. Okay, these organizations, we did not form them, okay? They predated the CCPC. So we support organizations related to media, like we have a news cooperative, and we also support activities related to the media, like the Cebu Media Medical Aid Fund and the Cebu Press Freedom Week. So the photos you are seeing here are of the Cebu Press Freedom Week. So this has been going on for more than 25 years. So definitely it predated the council. So this is 1 week every year in September, where we have activities, forums the whole week, but we also have, for this particular year, we had a photo exhibit, but we don't do that every year. So this one is an example of a forum. And we have everything from exhibits and forums and fellowship. We even have a beauty pageant, a sports events, all for 1 week. So this was in these forums. This is also another way where we connect to the public, because depending on the topic of the forum, we invite also representatives from certain sectors of society, and we also invite students. So it's another way where we reach out to them. They get to talk to us. They get to, because they feel happy. Also, they get to meet members of the media. They get to ask all the questions they would like to ask, and we always answer what we can. So it's a week-long activity. It always happens on the week where you have September 21. That is the declaration of martial law, because it is a reminder that our press freedom is very important, and someone tried to take it away from us. So we always want to remind people that we should defend our press freedom. It's always in that week. So during that week, we support by, remember we have a quarterly meeting. So the September meeting of CCPC, we put it as part of a calendar of events for that week. And there are other things that our executive director has done, which is to name streets after journalists. So we have had a number of streets named after dead journalists. And we usually have the unveiling of the street marker during the Press Freedom Week. So this is a brochure we made way back to answer the most frequently asked questions about the council. But in this day and age, you can just go to our website. Here is the address, www.cebuscitizenspresscouncil.org. Here are the things I mentioned earlier, Cebu Media Legal Aid, here, conversations, Cebu Journal Law, you just click on those. If you want to know more about the history of CCPC, how it started, just click here about CCPC. Those who want to know more about the complaints mechanism, you just go down here on the left, here below, click on Rules of Procedure. It's there. And then you have a shortcut to the papers and the solutions we have passed. You just click on this one here too, on the left, bottom left. And here in the middle, you have standards. This is the one I was telling you about, that we are trying to improve also the standards of our reporting. So we have also met to discuss how we should report, how we should approach certain topics. So that is the end of my presentation. And once again, here, I always emphasize the importance of being accountable. Journalists are free, but they should also be responsible. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Cherry. I'm sure our audience, they have a lot of questions for later sa ating Q&A. Interesting how you took us through the process of the 15-person Cebu Council. Interesting then, it's SEC-registered. It's actually a SEC-registered organization, right? It's
Yes.
ano sa kaya? Non-profit.
Non-profit.
Yes. Teka. Cheryl, I think you have to stop share muna so we can see each other. Sorry. There you go. Yeah, and the one that really struck me was the diagram earlier where you had an arrow out to KBP, which means that there's a strong interlink between the council and KBP. Very, very interesting. So now, babalikan ka namin, Cheryl, later during the Q&A. For the next 15 minutes, we have from Cebu, we go all the way up north to Cordillera. I'd like Jane Kadalig to discuss the Cordillera experience, the Cordillera Media Citizen Council.
Hi.
Hi, Jane. Good
everyone.
afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon, Miss Joyce, Ariel, and
Yes, good afternoon, Jane.
the group. Thank you for inviting us to share to this afternoon session. No, mine is just a brief sharing because the Cordillera Media Citizen Council is just a 2-month-old.
Okay.
We were just formed in December last year.
Pandemic baby pala kayo.
Kaya bagong silang nagde-develop pa ang mga vital organs namin. So really mine is a sharing on our formation series, no. So last year we were formed through the initiative of the Peace Conflict Journalism and Internews Philippines. It's under the USAID funded Initiative for Media Freedom project, and one of the outputs or the projects under that is the formation of a media citizen engagement in the format potentially in the format of yung initial is in the format of press council. Then in the process we invited, because Baguio Benguet, the media in Baguio Benguet has established a press council. There used to be a Baguio Benguet press council. It was formed through the initiative of the Center for Media Freedom and Responsibility, but for some reasons it did not last long. So in the process of forming the Cordillera Media Citizen Council, or KMCC, we invited those who formed the Baguio Benguet Press Council to learn from their experiences. Bakit hindi nag-prosper? Why did it not prosper? And that's why I'm familiar, lumabas ulit yung the old boys club, no, that term, no. There are various factors. Anyway, I don't want to dwell on that, no, but they shared to us, and then so that we can learn what went wrong, and then we can improve on it or deviate or whatever. So we had a training through the Peco John and Internews. So I was the convener. I invited newspapers, the publishers of local papers and radio stations. Okay, so there are 8. We have 8 media members, and then members of the academe. I mean we have 1 from the academe, 1 from the business sector, and 5 CSOs. Because what we decided when we were forming the KMCC was that let us not confine the council let us not confine it as a press council. Let's call it media, parang CCPC, no. Because it's a media citizen engagement mechanism or initiative. So that's why we invited representatives from civil society organizations, and right now tatlo ba? 5. We have 5 CSO members. So there we had a training, okay, to craft our vision, our mission, our objectives or goals, objectives. And then we had a training on sustainability. Okay, they guided us on how we can sustain this, because nakakahiya naman that we end up lang after the launching, no. So after all those processes, we had the launch on December 9, 2021. Now I would just like to share that in the crafting of our how we will be working, no. Ang tawag dito, guilty kasi ako. We patterned our levels of operation after the Cebu City Press Council. Kaya familiar ako doon. I have read those sa website ng CCPC. I hope you don't mind, Ma'am Sherry
Cherry.
Ann, no? And Ma'am
I
Maril.
don't mind.
Nabanggit ko na to kay Ma'am Maril doon. Hindi naman namin kinopya in toto yung the how you operate lang, because hindi nga namin alam where we will start. Although we are sure that ours is a collaboration, instead of just merely confining ourselves to a forum of parang as a grievance mechanism. We with the advent of SOCMED kasi they can just voice out their displeasure against the media. Okay na sila, although there are those who really threaten to file cases, to file charges. So in that context, we said, let us make it an collaborative. That's why we wanted to be as inclusive as possible. No, we want the CSOs, whoever want to join us from the academe and from the business sector, para mas madami. And then we will see how we can collaborate. Of course, given na yon that since we are a media citizen council, no, it's given that we will provide platform for airing of grievances, and that we will serve as a forum for media and community issues. Dalawa na siya. We will not be confining ourselves now to media issues lang, because there are also community issues. So why Cordillera Media Citizen Council? Or bakit hindi Baguio lang, or why not Baguio Benguet? During the formation or during the training, sabi nga namin, since we are in a region, no? Let us make the name as inclusive as possible, because what if community papers from other provinces like Abra, Apayao Mountain Province, Ifugao, or Benguet, given na yun kasi Baguio Benguet na, would also want to join. So we agreed that let's just name it, let's call ourselves or CSOs from other provinces, because right now Baguio Benguet pa rin. I guess that's understood naman. What if they want to become members of the council? So it would be too limiting if we call it the Baguio Benguet Media Citizen Council. So let's call it Cordillera Media Citizen Council, because our intention is to include those those who are willing to join us, or those who are willing to abide by the values, no, that we hold, or by the morals that we uphold. So yon, the levels of operation, sabi ko nga, I patterned it after the CCPC. So nandun, and I guess the wisdom, I cannot question the wisdom kung bakit ganun yung level of operation ng Cebu, yung the right of reply, yung sa complaint, ganito ang gagawin. The right of reply and to address the inaccuracies in media reports, no? Dahil tama nga naman, if you address the biases, if you let the papers, diba, the other papers, you address the biases, if you let the other paper, diba, air the side of an aggrieved party, parang ganun. So that's it for now. Very young, very nangangapa pa kami sa totoo lang. We're still a very young organization, so we are still learning from the experiences of others also, and kahit anong model we are learning, so that we want to see how we can best work at. Although one of the things that we want to do is parang, we address complaints, we address complaints, but we also want to collaborate on things like providing trainings on the promotion of media literacy, and we want to do that with the CSOs. Especially that they are those working on the grounds. We want to know how what the people want, especially in the setting or in the backdrop or in the background of disinformation and dis or misinformation, no. So we want to help the communities also be informed with truthful or consume. We want them to consume truthful, no, and relevant information. So yun yung we are basically we operate on collaboration. So I really cannot share much other than the formation, our journey towards the creation of the Cordillera Media Citizen Council. And that's it. I hope that I have inspired the other regions or other areas, no, to also come up with their own press council or media citizen council, kasi we need them for us to reclaim the space, the media space from the trolls. That's all, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Jane. Actually nakakatuwa yung experience that you shared. It's very brave. I think very brave of you to be doing that in the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of uncertain times, ano? That's when we hold ourselves to higher standards. Yun ang nakakatuwa. So for now, we move to session 3. I'd like to call a good friend, Jonathan De Santos. He's the chairperson of the National Union of Journalists of the Philippines. And he will be discussing, or he will be advocating for why we should decriminalize libel. Jonathan?
Hi. Thank you, Joyce. Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry, wala akong slides because as a lot of our colleagues, no, company laptop ang gamit ko at pag tiningnan ko lang siya, nag-hang siya, no. So may notes naman ako. So yun. All right. Good afternoon, everyone again. Bale, no, in December, Energy Secretary Alfonso Cusi and businessman Dennis Uy filed libel complaints against more than a dozen journalists, editors, and media executives. The complaints were for reporting on a graft complaint filed against them. Yung mga ganitong complaints naman, as we know, these are standard stories, no? Especially for journalists covering the Office of the Ombudsman. The story was that the complaint was filed, and yun lang, we have to note that there are many things that can happen to a graft complaint. These can be dismissed or just sit in limbo, and nothing more is heard about it again. Actually, I suspect that this is actually what happens to most complaints after the initial furor, no, of the filing. Sometimes it is the filing that is the story. But Cusi, in his complaint, demanded damages in the millions, saying that the reports were damaging his good reputation and good standing in government, which he also said he developed through years of hard work and effort. In his complaint, he alleged that by writing about the graft complaint, it was the journalists and newsrooms, not the complainants, no, that had publicly accused him of graft. Two things that we have to note in this case. Some of the stories, notably by ABS-CBN News, included Cusi's side of the issue, while other newsrooms did follow-up stories and highlighted his views, no, or his explanation of the deal, no. I don't know if Cusi and Uy tried to get in touch with the newsrooms about the story, but for Philstar.com, where I work, we did not get any letters or similar complaints over the story, and we were surprised that some of our colleagues were among the respondents. Commenting on the complaints, the Center for Media Freedom and Responsibility said that these are all too familiar and they are an attempt to intimidate, harass, and ultimately silence the press. It's unclear where the libel complaints from Cusi and Uy will go, but we are already feeling some of its effects. Newsrooms, for example, have had to devote time and resources to addressing these complaints. The Uy complaints were filed in Davao City, which means that the journalists who were impleaded may have to fly there to appear before the prosecutor. That means time and resources that newspapers could have otherwise devoted to more reporting. Yun naman nga ang trabaho natin. And attending to these complaints detracts from that. And swerte na nga yung bigger newsrooms because some journalists would not even know how to respond, to a libel complaint. Meron tayong colleague, for example, who received a libel complaint and then she didn't know na meron palang deadline to respond. So, ayun, nadala siya sa korte and it was a 7-year trial for her. She was eventually acquitted. Pero 7 years yun of paying for lawyers, of devoting your time to hearings, no? And we also cannot deny that this has led to some of our colleagues to hesitate on reporting about the sale of shares in the Malampaya gas project, especially after the president came out in defense of it and saying na he had reviewed the deal and that it was a private transaction that government, particularly the Senate, which has filed a resolution urging graft complaints over it, should stay out of it. But the Kusi and Uy complaints are just among the latest and the most publicized libel complaints. And there has been an increase of these in recent years. Now, in fact, at least 20 libel cases were filed since March 2020. And that's out of 37 cases that we have monitored since 2016. No? So increasingly, libel is becoming a favored tool or a favored avenue for redress or for harassment. Depends on your point of view, I guess. No. That number, or yung 20 libel cases, does not include complaints related to the Bayanihan Tuhilas 1 Act, which has a provision against individuals or groups creating, perpetrating, or spreading false information about the COVID-19 crisis. There have been complaints filed over this. Merong radio station in Nueva Ecija, which is facing a case like that. Meron ding artist in Cebu City who was arrested naman for saying rather satirically in a Facebook post that Cebu City was the epicenter of the pandemic. Thankfully, dismissed na yung case, but yung trauma and yung abala of that case, syempre nangyari na, no? And libel and cyber libel exist as crimes at a time when, as Reporters Without Borders noted in 2021, at least 10 countries, including the Philippines, no, are classified as yung press freedom situation is classified as bad or very bad, no, and these countries use the pandemic to reinforce obstacles to the free flow of information. Rather ironically, parang naghahabulan tayo with Thailand, Indonesia, and Cambodia, no, for having adopted draconian laws or decrees to criminalize criticism of the government. So ito yung ginagalawan nating environment ngayon. But even before that, commenting in 2013 about the Cybercrime Prevention Act of 2012, CMFR noted that libel remains as problematic as it has been for over 80 years to press freedom and free expression. And because there is the penalty is heavier when it's done online, it has become an even bigger constraint on free expression. Even then, they noted that criminal libel is one of the most abused means to suppress free expression and press freedom in the Philippines, and that the fear of possible imprisonment and the imposition of fines has on many occasions silenced press criticism of government officials and even the reporting of matters of public interest. As we know, NUJP as well as other press freedom groups have been calling to decriminalize libel, particularly because the UN Human Rights Council has asked the Philippines to review its laws on libel and cyber libel. It said, around 2012 pa yata, 2013, that criminal libel is incompatible with the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. Under General Comment Number 34, which detailed the application of Article XIX, the UNHRC reiterated that state parties should consider that the criminalization of defamation and, in any case, the application of the criminal libel of the criminal law should only be countenanced in the most serious of cases, and that imprisonment is never an appropriate penalty. Although governments can indict a person for criminal defamation, ang tendency kasi is for for the indictment to happen and then sobrang tagal nung trial, like in the case of one of our colleagues nga na 7 years, and the UNCHR noted na such a practice has a chilling effect that may duly restrict the exercise of freedom of expression of the person concerned and of others. In more recent cases naman, commenting on the libel case against rapper CEO and now Nobel laureate Maria Ressa, it was noted by David Kay, no, yung special rapporteur on freedom of expression at the time, that using defamation laws in vexatious ways deter journalists in acting as a public watchdog on government accountability and in providing forums for public debate on matters of public concern. So that naman affects the public's access to information on matters of public interest and concern. Related to that case, but also speaking on libel in general, online rights group democracy.net.ph, they are one of the petitioners then against the Cybercrime Prevention Act, no? Pointed out that criminal libel is commonly used as a tool for the powerful to use government resources in the oppression of the weak. Sabi nila, yung libel daw is an affront to the right to freedom of expression, and that it ensures that the full power and might of the state is brought to bear on a matter that should only be between two private parties. At the time, nung trial ni Maria Ressa, they joined the call to decriminalize libel, whether online or offline, and to take away the participation of the state in disagreements on speech. Sabi nila, the state has no business aiding and abetting a private person's demand for restitution for hurt feelings from another person's expression, whether offline or online. A lot of freedom of expression advocates say na really the best way to address yung mga to address kunyari articles or speech that hurts you is to counter it with more speech, to counter it with better arguments, better speech, no? So yun yung pinanggagalingan ng democracy.net.ph. In more recent rulings naman by the Supreme Court on the libel case against Rafi Tulfo and Abante, this was in 2021, the court held that public officers are accountable to the public and must serve them with utmost responsibility, integrity, loyalty, and efficiency. Speech that guards against abuses of those in public office should be encouraged. And yun nga, they ruled to acquit Mr. Tulfo, no? And from that same ruling, they said that the need to protect freedom of speech and of the press cannot be understated, because without a vigilant press, the government's mistakes would go unnoticed, their abuses unexposed, and their wrongdoings uncorrected. Most notably, from that ruling, no, and perhaps something that we can take hope from is this part nga, penned by Associate Justice Marvic Leonen. No? He said that the constitutionality of criminalizing libel is doubtful. In libel, the kinds of speech actually deterred are more valuable than the state interest that the law against libel protects. He noted that the libel cases that have reached the Supreme Court in recent years generally involve notable personalities, highlighting a propensity for the powerful and influential to use the advantages of criminal libel to silence their critics. The Supreme Court also noted that there are other legal remedies, for example, the Civil Code chapter on human relations, that aggrieved parties can use in case of unwarranted attacks on a private person's reputation and credibility. Civil actions like civil cases for defamation, he said, are more consistent with the Philippines' democratic values, since these do not threaten the constitutional right to free speech and avoid the unnecessarily chilling effect on criticism towards public officials. Dagdag pa doon, yung filing fee, which comes with filing a civil case, will also reduce the propensity to file libel cases or to file libel complaints to harass and intimidate journalists and citizens. No? So paulit-ulit yun that it has been used to silence the press, it has been used to harass and intimidate those kunyari, who express dissent towards the state or express parang sabihin natin opinions that the complainants don't appreciate, no? But knowing this, can we in fact decriminalize libel? This has been an ongoing campaign, decades na to. This predates well, sige, this predates my career, I suppose, no? And lagi naman, at every Congress, and even this Congress, there are bills to decriminalize libel. But often, these get stuck at the committee level. Partly because nga, it is, yung members of Congress might be, parang most likely, sila rin yun naman yung hihingi na nagagamit ng libel as an avenue for redress or or pwede rin to harass, no? Although, I guess we have to note that a bill to institute a Press Freedom Day on November 23 will likely pass, no? So at least meron tayong kaunting consuelo, no? But in the meantime, and I am glad that press councils in Cebu and the Cordilleras are showing us the way, no? We have to rely and push for self-regulation. It does seem possible that if there is a formal body to receive complaints from readers and from news subjects, libel complaints will be less likely. From experience, government officials who write demand letters or who complain over stories often just want to get their side heard if they feel that they were portrayed unfairly in reports. Usually, what we do is gagawa kami ng follow-up report so they can air their side. No? So, yun nga, that is their right to reply. Unlegislated siya, but it's a common practice that we do. So having a press council that will look into these complaints, especially if there is representation from civil society, could help address these these complaints, no, or these from readers and news subjects. And it will also help to improve trust in media and bring us closer to the public that we serve. In the meantime, again, and always in the interest of self-regulation, no? Kasi ayaw naman natin na the state will tell us what we can and can't write. We can only rely on the basic ethics of the profession that we were taught in school, no, or that we picked up on the job, which are truth, independence, fairness, justice, accountability, and humanity. It's true that a libel has been used as a weapon against the press, although it is also true that while we do have press freedom, we also have to acknowledge that there are times that we go beyond the bounds of the profession, or sometimes we don't get it right, no. And I feel that a press council will help as a bridge between journalists or between the media and news subjects and readers, no. So I'm really looking forward to the development of more councils, and yun nga, although very unlikely na ma-decriminalize ang libel, it's never wrong to keep calling for it, and it's never wrong to keep calling out libel complaints that are being used as a weapon against us. That's it from me for now, but I'm looking forward to the Q&A later. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you to our first 4 speakers. And we will have first our Q&A and then move on later to Amalia, Dexter, and Jonald. We call in our first 4 speakers, Professor Gary, si Cherry of Cebu, si Jane of Cordillera, and of course, Jonathan of NUJP, ano? Jonathan, diba pag sa college, it's a conundrum for students when we try to explain it to them na in the Constitution, while it states that no law shall be passed, abridging freedom of expression, freedom of the press, we also acknowledge that there are existing laws that may be in a contradictory position dun sa ganung sinabi ng Constitution, ano. But the way I recall my law professor explained to us, parang your right to swing your arm ends where my nose begins. So the other laws, including libel, are not meant to impinge on press freedom, but to protect other rights. Kaya nga sinasabi natin, sometimes it is being abused. We acknowledge that libel exists and libel has to be punished if it is really libelous. but others are abusing also libel and against among other existing laws for against press freedom. And I speak as someone who suffered from a libel case for 10 years, diba? 10 years I had to bring always that small piece of paper which says I'm granted temporary liberty because I'm out on bail for 10 years. At nakakatrauma po talaga ang magkaroon ng kaso. Some people they say it's a bragging right. Some people say na, if you don't have a libel, hindi ka totoong journalist. That's not true. If you have a libel case, you're harassed. You really suffer mentally. Plus financially, kasi every time pupunta ako sa korte, kailangan ko magpa-manicure. I have to buy something new para to cheer me up, di ba? Bago ko humarap dun sa judge. Nakaka-stress. Anyway, we have some comments and questions sa ating chat group. I see also some people raising their hands. Let me start first with Mr. Cedric Pulga. It's actually more of a comment. I think this is both to Jane and Cherry. And he said that the council must be expanded rather. Make it more inclusive, including those ascribing scribes. Baka ito yung mga college campus journalists pa lang siguro. Those who wish to uphold press freedom, writers or non-writers. What's your take on this, Cherry? Sa Cebu ba ganon? Are we allowing mga campus journalists to join the council or may representation ba sila?
In youth, oo. In youth.
Ngayon, sa 15-member council, wala sila. Yeah, it's been wala.
Okay, it's something we can also
Miss Joy, can I say
consider.
something?
Oh, yes, of course, Cedric.
Okay. Hello po. Good afternoon po sa mga speakers po natin. This is in line po doon sa lecture kanina ni Mr. Gary na yung sinabi niya na old boys club daw, yung PPC. Probably that's because nga po yung it did not cope up siguro with the changing times. Probably siguro yun nga po na i-expand yung council to the younger blood or i-open yung PPC to the youth or to the young blood para mas younger yung audience. Kasi syempre po, naniniwala naman ho ko na marami ho sa amin, sa generation namin. Someone speaking from our generation po, na marami hong interested na maging part nung move to uphold yung press freedom. Pero hindi nila magawa because in the first place, limited sila nung mga chances at nung opportunities nila. So probably po, the PPC might consider opening the council or the membership of the council to the more younger audience po. Yun lang po yung take ko, mga nakapon po.
Thank you, Cedric. Yeah.
Just can I say something too? Okay, thanks Cedric for that suggestion. Okay, just a reminder that the council itself is not just an organization. It's not an organization lang. It is actually a mechanism. So, yung ang composition ng council, magdedepende pa rin yan sa komunidad na magbubuo nun. Whoever takes the lead in establishing a council, much like what happened to Cebu and as an offshoot of the CMR effort and also ng Cordillera as a result of the inter-youth support, sila kayo, for example, saan ka ba, Cedric?
I'm based po sa Palawan po.
Palawan nga pala. Oo. I remember
malakas
kasi,
din ang media dyan,
Oo.
At matapang.
In Palawan, yes. I remember yung effort ng CMFR para makabuo din, magkaroon ng press council. Pumunta din sila actually tunulungan ang Palawan Press Council. Kindly check ang press council nyo kung gumagana pa. Kasi kung hindi, and you see the need to reorganize it or give birth to it, again, give it a rebirth, ang kailangan siguro i-suggest mo din yun sa inyo, sa press council. As sinabi na ng chairman namin kanina, at siguro naman we're on the same page, let's veer away from the National Press Council and create local press council para agaran yung responde. Hindi ka na magre-rely sa press council. Kunyari, ang nirereklamo naman ang isang media naman dun sa local ninyo, edi kayo din magsosolve din nun. And expanding the composition or the membership of the council in deciding matters sa inyo pa rin yun. probably may church, merong kung ano-ano lang naman yun. So there's actually no clear imposition as to how you will, organize in terms of membership.
Actually, if you ask me, Ariel, ibabato ko ito pabalik sa academe. Why don't you band together the newspapers in the colleges and universities in that specific community and then make a formal request, parang rotating membership.
Right.
Diba? Para may representation sa inyo at sa press council. I'm sure that can be accommodated. Because if we give nga to PNP, to the church, to others, bakit hindi dun sa isang natural ally natin, which is the academe, and our campus journalists. Plus, they're not exempted from libel, because remember, it doesn't say professional media. As long as it's printed, it can be libel. So, pwede rin sila actually makasuhan. And we've had instances of campus journalists being slapped with cases as well. Si Mr. Alex Pal, this was actually the very first question even before we started the discussion earlier. At ito ay napaka-controversial. So I hope our speakers are prepared to answer this as well. Sabi niya, and this is very true, many politicians own media outfits. And if these media outfits are represented in a press council, can a complainant who is not aligned with the politicians be assured of a fair decision? Ano ang naging experience natin? Maybe si Boo would like to take on this kasi sila ang medyo mahaba na ang experience. And if Jonathan would also like to share his thoughts on this.
Is the question in the chat box?
Yeah, sorry, but very, very early on.
Early on.
Super. Ang question lang niya, Cherry, is if the press count, kung ang may-ari ay politiko ng media, kung ang isang complainant daw is not aligned with that politician, can he or she be still assured of a fair decision? Have you had experiences like that?
No, we have not received any complaints like that.
But in Cebu, are there media outfits that are owned or aligned with politicians?
Yes, our media outfit is
San Cebu Garcias.
Yes.
Hindi directly owned but relative siya sa governor. But she's not a direct owner. And then our rival, owned din by a congressman, long-time congressman. But it's never been an issue.
Siguro kasi Alex, Joyce, it's still going to be consensual. Kasi ang paglabas ng desisyon, kailangang i-agree pa rin niya na kung sinong, like a 15 persons council or board. I think pa rin, meron pa rin fair decision that should come out, Alex, hopefully. Kasi wala pa naman nangyari so far na ganun sa in the history, no? Kahit sa press council ng PTI. Pero magandang pala isipan yun, Jonathan, Cherry, Jane, Joyce, and Sir Gary. Kasi in the event, or Marit here, of course, in the event na magkaroon ng ganun, ano nga ba talaga? But I think we have to abide with the mechanisms of the press council.
But I think like what Jane said earlier, today if anyone is aggrieved that his side was not taken, he can just go to social media and has a bigger audience even.
Yeah. Instant feedback mechanism ang SOCMED.
We will, as a complaints mechanism, will become sort of irrelevant because they can just complain immediately to the whole world.
And actually, yun din ang point ni Sir Rolly.
Facebook pages are more popular than ours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ang problema lang sa social media, because it's so instant, you can't filter. Parang instead of mediation, it actually pours gasoline on the fire, di ba? Instead of allowing people to take a step back and look at all the factors considered and then arrive at an amicable solution. Si Mr. Christopher Tirambolo has his hand raised kanina pa. Christopher, you'd like to ask your question? Personally, I'll call you.
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon to all. I just want to make a follow-up to Ma'am Terian and Jonathan with regards to what they said that there is a complaint from the from what they did a story that is they think that that is a malicious for them and they can damage a reputation. But I just want to see the whole picture that before we publish the story, we will get their side. Eh hindi ko lang po kasi masyadong maintindihan. Bakit sila magpa-file ng demanda sa inyo? For example, Sir Jonathan sa Philippine Star, eh, hinihingan nyo naman sila ng side. Tapos, bigla silang magpa-file ng complaint. Parang ang ironic naman po kasi ng ganun.
Thank you. Well, that is their right, no? It's a legal option for them, and really it's up to them to kung gusto nila mag-avail of that right or of that avenue. And it will be up to the prosecutor naman to determine if it should go to court, no? Pero yun nga, it's always best naman, and it's common practice naman to get the other side, of course. Pero sometimes that isn't enough, and yun nga, yun yung doon lumalabas yung tendency for its use as a weapon, no, against the press. Pero we do recognize that yes, the law exists, and that sometimes we minsan mali talaga yung report, or minsan nagkulang yung reporter, no? So ayun, and we have to face that. Hindi naman lahat ng libel cases ay attempts to silence the press. Pero lahat ng libel cases affect the media environment, no? So syempre lahat yun ay kailangan pa rin tingnan, kailangan pa rin bantayan. But yun nga, hindi guarantee that if you're fair or that if you do the job correctly na hindi ka makakasuhan. But that will help if ever kasuhan ka man kasi the prosecutor might see na, sige, parang wala namang basis to or wala namang merit ito. Yun.
So, Sir Jonathan, doon po, kasi di ba sabi niyo po kanina para matapos na lang yung demanda o para hindi na lang mag-proceed sa court, mag-publish na lang po ng secondary or follow-up story po. Is that okay for a journalist? Kasi parang, siyempre,
okay.
Natakot na tayo eh. Kasi possible na maisampa yung kaso. I remember one of the speakers told us na hindi naman nila intention na makulong yung journalist eh. Ang intention lang nila is ma-file lang yung complaint sa court. Yun lang naman yung gusto nila eh. So to damage the reputation of the journalist.
Hindi din. Yung iba din talaga gusto nila makulong para sampulan. It's not true. Kailangan gusto nila talagang experience yun kasi libel itself has been weaponized ever since.
Yes.
Kaya nga apart from the financial ang tawag dito, burden, meron pa rin yung physical, mental and all.
That's so true.
Also, siguro, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Clarify ko lang, no? Itong mga follow-up stories or itong mga clarifications, no? Hindi naman yan automatic na porket nagreklamo ka, no? We also have to evaluate na, baka hindi natin na-ventilate yung side niya that well, or baka nagkulang tayo ng certain detail. Then it warrants a follow-up story, or parang if it's a bigger error, then it would merit an erratum, no? Hindi siya out of fear, but really it's a decision out of it's an editorial decision. Parang it's
out of fairness.
Out of fairness, exactly. Thank you.
I'd just like to add, because dapat to si Sir Gary, if he has returned to the briefing, to the Zoom room. There are several elements of libel. Of course, you know that, diba? It has to be identifiable. When you say identifiable, hindi kailangang identified. If you give enough clues and ma-identify mo kung sino yon, then it becomes identifiable. It has to be published, there has to be defamation, etc., etc. Ang pinaka-crucial talaga dyan, and I'm sure Jonathan will agree, is the difference between malice in fact and malice in law. Kapag private person yung involved, it's malice in law. You assume there is malice. But if it's a public personality, if it's a government official, if it's a, if it's a public figure, di ba? Someone appointed, elected, or by way of relation. Then you require malice in fact. And I tell you, Christopher, it's very difficult to prove malice in fact. Very, very difficult. In the history of libel cases in the Philippines, I think only 2 or 3 ang nag-prosper enough to pinpoint that there is malice in fact. One of them will be Louis Beltran, but he already passed away nung nangyari yung decision sa kanyang kaso. Now, bakit ko ganun gina-ground yung context ng sagot ko sa'yo? When I say it's very difficult to prove malice in fact, alam din niya nung nagkaso. So actually, although may intention siya talaga na ipakulong ka, nare-recognize niya na hindi ganun kadali yon gawin. Pero, itutuloy pa rin niya. Kasi yung pagbayad mo pa lang sa lawyer, pagbayad mo ng bail, araw-araw, every time na may hearing kayo, you pay your lawyer. Napakalaki po ng impact niyan sa isang newspaper. Kasi hindi naman yung journalist from personal pocket niya ilalabas yon. Siyempre galing yun dun sa pondo ng dyaryo. And for a community paper, that can spell the death of a newspaper kung hindi naman ganun kalaki ang kita niya. So doon ka talaga dadaliin ng libel Maliban sa kulong, which is like 10, given the way the justice system is here. Di ba ganun ka speed bagal dito sa atin? 10, 20 years of ongoing kaso, that will erode your revenue so much. Doon ka niya talaga dadaliin. That's why Ariel said it's also weaponized.
Thank you.
Agree.
Thank you.
Thank you. There's one actually more of comment here. Kanino ba ito galing? I think from Max Limpag. Sabi niya, apart from moving beyond being print focused, I hope media councils can also move beyond being focused on TradMed, accept membership or engage with independent journalists, bloggers, except for example lang, newsrooms, especially outside the capital, are being gutted, yes. And we are seeing independent news sites doing news coverages. Freelancers, yes, dapat. And independent journalists not connected with traditional newsrooms are the ones who need more help, assistance, and guidance. Oo nga naman. Pag freelancer ka at na-libel ka, ikaw ang sasalot. Karamihan siguro ng gastusin, May questions pa ba? For Elmer Bandol. Actually, ako may tanong pala kay Cherry bago ko tawagin. Before I read yung question ni Elmer, Cherry, sa Cebu experience, in a year, mga ilang complaints ang nare-receive ninyo? Tapos ilan doon ang hindi nagpo-prosper into a libel case? Ilan yung natutuloy bilang libel? And meron ba kayong idea kung bumaba o tumaas ang bilang ng libel cases since the press council was established in Cebu? Kasi proof of concept natin ang Cebu dahil matagal na silang nag-exist.
I can't remember the last time that we received a complaint. We received very few actually. I made some report of it some years back. Wala na kaming na-receive after that. I think because the mere fact that we organized as a group, I was saying too, is already a deterrent. Because the things that we are trying to advocate, which are accuracy and right of reply, these are the basic journalism, things that we're supposed to do anyway. So we get very few complaints, and the most of the complaints we have are not about accuracy and right of reply. Parang they wrongly sent it to the press, but we still have. Sometimes some are advertising concerns, hindi naman related sa right of reply or accuracy. So very, very, very few. Even yung right of reply, it's not na malice on the part of the news outlet. Sometimes just laziness, maybe difficulty in finding the person that you want to get the side of. Yun lang, siguro. Remember maybe 3 cases and the others were not related. So,
tingin mo ba with the existence of the press council in your area, parang mas naintindihan ba ng stakeholders kung ano ang role ng media? And in understanding our role, they also realize na hindi tayo dapat kalaban o hindi tayo dapat tingnan as kalaban?
I think so. That's why I highly recommended the consultations, especially with those that you are in contact with. But more importantly, there will be less of a conflict. Of course, there will be more conflict if you are really an irresponsible journalist, but there will be less if you will be responsible. But sometimes, even if you're responsible, they don't like what you're writing. So it really helps. In all the times that we invited those particular sectors, we didn't have any more conflict with them after that.
Chair Joyce, susugan ko lang yung tanong ni Joyce kanina. So we're very much interested to take note of the Cebu experience, no, as sort of a model. Maganda yung tanong ni Joyce kanina. In the last, let's say, last 5 years, walang bumaba ang kaso ng libel cases or wala because mayroong council. Dahil alam nila na mechanism yon for grievances.
There still are libel cases, but not that many. There's one against one of our columnists.
Last year or during the pandemic or before the pandemic?
Okay, Bobby.
Bobby Nazaro ba yan?
Yeah.
Wait, Chair. Pero yan, hindi na yan dumaan sa council, obviously, because nag-file na siya ng libel. Oo.
Because may beef na talaga siya.
Oo, gusto niya talagang...
Dati may beef with that,
Okay.
So at least we see na parang it's also effective talaga. Jonathan, wake up call for NUGP. Dapat yung union naman.
Can I say? Yeah. Can I say something?
Yeah, Ami, go
yes,
ahead.
Ami, hello.
Yeah, I was because this reminded me of the letter, the statement of Attorney Charez yesterday about the billboard that was on. That was reminding people, parents, to look into vaccines, no? And that billboard was taken down. So, yeah, that could be one of the examples. So, according to Attorney Charez, that we need a press council at the local level that we can really monitor, because you don't know. I don't know if because the people behind the Filipino Alliance, I forgot, they were quite aggrieved. Because for them, it was just their opinion, and they want people to really think about thinking twice about having their kids 5 to 11 vaccinated. So they said it was just an opinion, an expression of their But that billboard was taken down. So that reminds me that as Attorney Shari said, we should really have a localized peace council, media council.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ami, and babalikan kita later para sa ating session 4. Si Miss Marit is raising her hand. Yes, ma'am. Nawala ba si Miss Marit?
Parang hindi siya.
Naka-unmute siya, but we can't hear you, ma'am. Baka if you can remove your headset, that would be better. Ma'am Marit, balikan kita. We really can't hear po. So sorry. Or if you'd like to chat na lang, ma'am, para we will ask your questions habang nasa chat po. Si Mr. Joseph Tubilan just mentioned that apart from the Nazaro case, there was also the Garcia versus Lastibosa libel case in Cebu. Si Mr. Elmer Bandol, meron...
It was years before.
Matagal na itong kay Lastimosa. Okay. Mr. Elmer Bandol has a question. I agree that the council could become an avenue for media literacy, which is a primordial concern next to being an arbitration venue. How will the council respond to trolls, revisionists, and others using digital platform? Jane, is that something that's being encountered in Cordillera?
Or something that the council can take on?
It's not.
How will we it depends on how you will operate. We respond to complaints. So if the troll just wants to harass us, then they can just harass us. But the council would work on complaints, on inaccuracies of reports, or complaints on one-sided stories. So, bahala na si Troll kung anong gusto niyang i-bash niya kami, that's up to them. As long as, I think it depends on how the troll will attack you eh. But dun sa as a council, this is how we operate. We operate on complaints and we are a platform of airing of grievances, or we give statements on community and media issues.
Jane, sorry, just a quick follow-up. Kasi kayo yung baby council natin eh. Ano ang response on the ground? Excited ba yung mga media partners? Paano ang ibang stakeholders outside media?
Thank you for bringing that up. To be honest, and that is what I was going to ask sana Ma'am Cherry, no? When I invited, kasi there are outfits that I invited but they did not respond. So the others naman are excited to be part of the council, and we saw that when we had our launching, because their questions were on how can they become members or what are our policies on membership. But during the initial convening or process, may mga hindi nag-respond, maybe because they still haven't grasped really the concept or the intention of the press council. So I would like to believe that the community is excited and welcoming and are welcoming to the formation of the Cordillera Media Citizen Council. And may I just ask the question now kay Ma'am Cherry Ann? Kasi nga it's related to what I said na may mga hindi nag-respond na outfits eh. To Ma'am Cherry Ann, I just want to ask a suggestion, your comments or your views. Kung halimbawa ba, example lang, there is a complaint about a biased report or an inaccurate report, but that complaint is addressed to an outfit that is a non-member of the Cordillera Media Citizen Council. How should we go about it? Can we decide that the publications that are member of the KMCC can just publish the side of the other, or paano ba? Ano ba ang tama dapat gawin?
It will depend on what you decide for your council. But for us, so far we are thinking in Cebu, we're thinking only of our daily newspapers and the KBP, and that's about it. That's the way the Cebu Citizens Press Council was structured, and we also haven't received any complaints regarding any outfit outside of those. So I really can't answer your question. It would depend on whether you would want, I guess, to accept such complaints. In our case, what CCPC is just any there's a concern. So sort of complaints. Because we still have to work in the newspaper. We have lots of things to do. So I don't know if you will accept complaints from everybody. There's a risk that you will be flooded.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Cherry. Thank you, Jane. I think we can go to our last two questions, but very quickly, yung comments po ni Miss Marit, because we could not hear her kanina. Sabi lang niya, I think the Cebu media workers are generally responsible, and this is the main reason why there are few complaints or libel suits. Kudos sa Cebu media.
That's what they always say, no?
Yeah.
Observation talaga, yan.
And ang CCPC daw always invites local organizations of bloggers to their activities, but they're not necessarily members of the council. 2 members of the academy in the council are actually professors from mass comm departments, and mass comm students are always invited. It's very good. I see 2 hands raised. This will be our last 2 questions from Joseph Tubilan and Cedric Pulga. Joseph first and then Cedric for our last question.
I would like to ask, by the way, this is Joseph Tubilan of Cebu. I am also with Cebu Normal University and CCPC. I just would like to ask Miss Lita Jane Kadalig of their experience. So when you started with this Cordillera group of press councils, are the USAID, the Internews, and others. They are investing money so that you can start, or this is just the idea come from your group, and eventually the USAID is helping you. Can you share to us how this thing started?
Sure, sir. The USAID, Internews and Pecojon funded the training and the workshops. They they provided the training. They paid for the resource speakers. So that's it. Because they chose I think we were one of the pilot areas for the project, for the Initiative for Media Freedom project of the USAID. Baguio is one of the pilot areas, and there were criteria or factors that they consider, and we were chosen. We were chosen as the pilot area, so they funded they provided the the funds for the creation of the what do you call this of the KMCC, and then even during the launch, they provided the fund that we used to launch the project or the initiative.
Because I am afraid that if there's no money, the funding will no longer be available, since there is a possibility that mawala yung council, because in the Cebu experience, it's really about commitment, no? And we are here to serve the community. So that's why here, well, I was as a reporter and an editor before, and now I am in the academy. There's always the thing about conversation was now part of the service of the CCPC. It's because we are collaborating with each other. So that's something that I can share with you. Thank you.
Yes, sir. I agree that funds are really one of the main reasons why projects or initiatives do not materialize or do not last long. I hope we can sustain the project. Yeah, and I agree also with the commitment of the members and our partners from the CSO, from the academy, and from the business sector. We are really looking forward to their support and commitment to our cause. Kaya nga namin sinabi, we are working on collaborative. It's a product of collaborative effort.
Thank you, Jane. I'd like to call on Cedric Pulga. This will be our last question.
Yun po, hello. Kanina ko kasi na-realize ko pala na most of our discussions po, mostly focused doon sa independent press or sa independent journalists po, no? Pero recently, most of the government agencies naman has explored po yung use ng press as their, as a tool to disseminate information in its ideal sense. Pero what's your take po sa mga speakers po natin when the government agencies itself, sila mismo yung, how do I say this, sila yung, sa kanila yung nagpo-proliferate yung mga hate articles or mga trolls or mga someone na nagpapakalat ng mga false claims po. So yun po yung question ko, kung ano po yung pwede, may mechanisms po ba tayo doon sa mga government agencies na meron silang mga press releases na nagpapalabas ng mga maling paratang or probably mga false claims po in general? Ano po yung pwedeng gawin ng PPC in general? Thank you po.
We don't publish false claims. We don't publish articles that are intended to that with false claims. That's one of our passions, is to verify nga if the article or the press release is true. Kasi given dapat truthful yung information. So if it's false, then why bother publishing the false PR or the false claim?
Or Joyce, baka pwede din yung tanong ni CJ, what if pwede bang is it possible na mag-file ng charges sa isang government report or information officer or government media na ayun sa tingin niya na he or she feels maligned in the story?
Yes.
Tama?
Yes. Yeah. So I want to answer actually his question sa dalawang paraan. Una, kung ikaw ay media at naka-receive ka ng press release na alam mo ay nagpipedal ng maling balita or disinformation, you can either, as Lina said, as Jane said, don't publish it, or publish it but frame it in a way na ito ay isang government official peddling fake news. 'Di ba? Hindi yung ang balita mo is not the fake news, but the act of a government official actually peddling fake news. Ikalawa, walang pinagkaiba ang press release ng gobyerno sa dyaryo for as long as it is considered as published. Pwede ka ring magreklamo. Maybe hindi libel ang case, but maybe an administrative complaint actually.
Yun.
TSC.
Administrative complaint.
Yes.
Yun, tama. Administrative complaint. Kasi government eh.
Unless may government newsletter sila, then it becomes publication. Then libel will also apply. Ayan, so may mga comments pa sa chat boxes natin. At sa chat box rather, if the speakers would like to take it on privately, then they're free to do so. But we will move on to our fourth session, our second to the last session. And for this one, I'd like to call Miss Amalia Cabusao. Thank you to Professor Gary. Thank you to Cherry and Jane and Jonathan. I'd like to call Ami Cabusao of Mindanao Times and the Vice Chairperson of the Philippine Press Institute to discuss how to sustain press councils as a mechanism or how to expand its mandate. Ami?
Yeah. Thank you, Joyce. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and
clear.
clear.
Okay. Yeah, I was asked to say something about sustainability of press councils and how to expand it. But I think speakers before me, especially Cherry of CCPC and Jane, have already given their insights on how to sustain press councils, but the mere fact that they're still here operating. So, but I would like to jump off from what Sir Rolly and Sir Gary said on the experience of the Philippine Press Council. But then first, the pandemic. Many community newspapers have folded and now trying to survive by migrating online. And this has been actually, PPI has been actually helping this through the PPI Commons. So, and as Sir Gary said, making it more inclusive, making the Media Council more inclusive to engage other media organizations might encourage more membership and therefore ensure sustainability at this time of the pandemic and later after. Another idea that has been suggested by Sir Gary and Sir Rolly was to make it more local. Of course, because there are many local issues that can be better appreciated and solved at the local level, especially with regards to threats of libel and everything. It is easier for us to engage with these parties and try to talk them out of having a libel of having to file a libel case. I can say this because we have been subjected to all kinds of libel, from advertising to whatever columns or whatever, and it takes like 10 years or more for us to face the charge. Me and attorney Jess Duresa. So, but then of course we're looking at sustainability. So I think there are variables we need to look into when we talk about how to sustain media councils, and this has been raised already in the open forum and in the the speakers. So first is resources of media councils, because we do need resources, financial, whatever, for media councils to work. Although we say we are committed, but of course we need some budget-related variables. And this has always also been mentioned by Joseph and Jane, how they did it. And then second is, especially for local, for the local media, for local media councils, maintaining independence, as what Ariel said, that or Alex said, that if it's owned by politicians or if it's influenced by politicians, it's really very difficult to see how we can sustain and stay the course, in maintaining our independence. And of course, the scope and reach of media councils. There was mention on if we can invite trolls, or if you can, but these things, we really need to define the scope of our media councils. What complaints or what form of media are we going to invite in the council? So that's to look at the scope and content that will take that the complaints will be about. And the fourth is how media councils balance the ease to complain without overburdening themselves with so many complaints coming in. I mean, so that means media council should inform the public or inform the community during the launching, perhaps, their scope and what kind of assistance or assistance they can give to those who would like to question those who would like to hold the media accountable through press, through their articles, or through the radio or TV. So, and of course, the last I think would be that structures that should be in place for media councils to facilitate a fair complaints process. So there should be structures to make it easier for people to approach the media council, the local media council. So I'm not going to make this very long because I have to run to the airport. All of us believe that press councils work, no? By what we've heard so far, and that a dynamic and vibrant media is important in a working democracy. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you for sparing time for us. For this one, kahit alam ko, tatakbo ka pa sa...
5:30, may flight. Sige, thank you.
Safe travels, Amy. Now, for our last session, we'd like to call two of our trustees, Mr. Dexter C. and Mr. Jonald Rayos, trustees for Luzon of the Philippine Press Institute, to discuss how to move forward now that we have started our dialogue on the Press Council. Nag-jack and poy ba kayo kung sinong mauna? Dexter or Jonald, or by way of alphabetical ba to?
Medyo mahina yung
signal ni Dexter, right?
Si Jonald ba? Is he still here? Kasi meron siyang meeting. Jonald, let's see.
Jonald or Dexter, if they're still here.
Dexter na lang. Dexter? Hi,
Hello,
Dexter.
good afternoon.
Ayun, si Jonald. Ayan na.
There you go. Hi,
Hello.
Jonald.
Hi. Oo. Jonald first.
Hello.
Okay, sige.
Sige. Yes, Dexter na lang muna. Nagsasalita na siya.
Ikaw na, Jonald.
Ayun naman, kahiyaan pa kayo.
Hindi. Sige, ako na.
Go, Dexter.
Yeah. Thank you very much to our speakers for a very enriching afternoon regarding the organization of press councils. Pasensya na, walang video kasi mahina ang signal ko dito.
It's okay.
Anyway, we welcome the creation of press councils in our respective areas of jurisdiction. We also fully support the same, but there are some food for thoughts that we were able to gather during the course of the discussion and actual experience. Kasi dito sa Baguio, I remember there was nung time ni na Sir Jerry Evangelista, yung mga old guys na nauna na sa itaas. There was a Baguio Benguet press council that was organized. It was a 15-member group, but for one reason or the other, biglang nag-die down. So we also welcome the revival of the Cordillera Cordillera Citizens Press Council because it could really help enrich our profession. Kasi kung sa atin lang, parang pataasan lang ng ihiyan eh. So we need also some sectors to be involved, like the academy, the business sector, siguro importante na idagdag natin yung religious sector so that it will really provide us with the best advices on wag naman sa nangingialam sa trabaho pero it will help, they will help guide us on the way we do things. There were just some observations in the creation of the council. Kay Ma'am Cherry siguro, kung paano nila na-address yung issues among media personalities na keso yung ibang media people, may conclusion sa attitude ng mga kasama nila, yung mga may conclusion ba, may perception dun sa isang media personality. So, nagkakaroon ng gap. Paano kaya ma-address doon upang we will be able to win back yung support ng mga the whole media sector dun sa na-organize na press council. Kasi kung minsan nagkakasakitan kaya nagkakatampuhan. So yun lang siguro ang medyo concern na nakikita ko doon na may mga iba nang ayaw maki-join kasi yung mga iba may conclusion na doon sa isa na so ganito siya o ganun siya. So those are just parang bits of information na I would like to share na narinig ko rin naman sa mga kasama kung how could you help us to convince our fellow media practitioners to help and support the establishment of the press council. But for us, we are supportive, we welcome, and we will help cascade the matter to our fellow media practitioners in our area. Thank you very much, Maboy, Sir Ariel, and good afternoon to everyone.
Thank you, Dexter. Then we'll have Jonah.
Yes, good afternoon. Dinig ba?
Yes, klaro.
Nadidinig ba? Okay. Kanina nung tinatalakay ni Miss Cherry Ann Lim yung tungkol sa Cebu at yung na-share din ni Jane sa Cordillera, maganda naman na pagkakataon din na may mga kasamahan ako from Batangas Press Club na nasa sa room kanina at nakikinig sa mga discussion tungkol sa sa pagbuo ng Citizen Press Council. Siguro hindi pwede sa Batangas ang Batangas Press Council kasi Batangas Press Club kami, baka parehong BPC. O hindi rin pwedeng BAT-MC kasi may Batangas Medical Center. So baka pwede BAT-MEDC, Batangas Media Council. So katulad ng nabanggit ni Dexter, maganda din nakasama yung religious sector, kumbaga may panimbang. Although sa experience naman dito sa Batangas, hindi naman ganun katindi. Wala naman ditong masyadong na mga reklamo tungkol sa media or reklamo o mga complaints na hindi natutugunan o may mga media entity o na hindi tumutugon sa kanilang call para sumagot kung may mga nirereklamo sa kanila. Hindi din ako conforme doon sa sabihan nga na kung ikaw ay isang media man na hindi ka kumakain ng libel cases sa umaga ay hindi ka magaling na media man. Hindi naman ganon. Pero maganda na pagkakataon ito para sa amin dito sa probinsya na makabuo ng press council. Katulad din ng ginawa sa Cebu at sa Cordillera. May mga bago pa man ginawa at ang ating pulong, I have in mind kung sino ang mga tao o party na maimbitahan sa pagbuo ng council na ito. Actually, nung bago pa nabuo yung Cordillera, after nang mabuo yung Palawan Press Council, I have in mind kung sino yung iimbitahan hanggang sa namatay na yung isang legal luminaries na nasanay kasama. Dati siyang city prosecutor na kolumnista at broadcaster, kaya nga lang nawala na siya. Pero may mga tao pa rin from the legal circle na pwedeng makasama, meron sa academe at sa religious sector. So, nakikita ko na in the coming future ay mabubuo ang Batangas Citizen Media Council.
Wow.
sa tulong na rin ng PPI,
Oo.
siyempre.
Under pa rin ng PPI kasi yun eh. Oh. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, I think this actually ends the formal part of the discussion, ano? But if we can accommodate maybe a few more questions kung meron, or maybe comments from the floor.
Joyce, tanong ko lang kay Jonald kasi we're pleased to hear from him na talagang from way back gusto niya na buuin, ano? Tsaka siguro unti-unti niya nang meron na siyang idea kung paano buuin. Ang tanong ko lang sa iyo, Jonald, there is an active Batangas Press Club, right?
Yes,
at kasamahan ninyo, kasama natin, andito naman, nasa meeting room. So,
Oo.
klaro naman siguro kung ano yung magiging kaibahan ng press club sa press council, correct? I assume.
Yes.
Okay.
Ang ano ko lang, hindi, di ba, hindi lang bubuuin yung press council dahil may mga complaints, kundi a good venue rin to para maisulong ang cause for press freedom and other related advocacies, di ba?
Okay.
Hindi lang yung ikaw para bubuo ng isang council para may didepensahan or may tatakbuhan ng mga nagrereklamo, kundi para di maisulong yung ating causes for the advancement of the press freedom practice and responsible journalism.
Tama rin naman. Parang correlated yun di ba? If we give them a venue for mediation, we should also improve yung performance ng mga tao natin.
Joyce, para kay kay Dexter, because there is Cordillera KMCC. So nawala na yung Baguio Benguet Media Council Press Club, Press Council. Magbubuo pa or ito na yon, KMCC na, Dexter? Si Jane, baka gusto sagutin ni Jane.
Buo na siya, Ariel. It's already formed.
So hindi na kailangan hindi na kailangan i-revive yung Baguio Benguet.
No, hindi na. Kasi ibang model ito iba yung model ng KMCC.
Kasi pagkaintindi ko kay kanina kay Dexter kasi parang pwedeng i-revive. Sabi ko parang dalawa na. So ito na 'yon. Okay.
Ito na siya,
Okay. Thank you, Jane.
I think in our discussion today, parang may consensus naman talaga, Ariel, ano? There's no denying that we all agree on the importance of press councils and how lalo yung nasa local talaga, yung nasa community. So it's now just a matter of how do we implement it?
Correct.
How do we fine-tune the process? Saka yun nga, do we go by a covenant? There has to be some teeth, diba? There has to be some
enforcement
some enforcement. There has to be it has to be a little bit of binding. Otherwise,
binding talaga.
Kung wala rin namang mangyayari, parang
Pero yun nga, Joyce,
as
we end or wrap this up, yung balitaktakan yun towards the end natin, dalawa. It must be clear to all of you now that there is no imposition on the part of PPI for you guys to create a council. But after all these discussions, alam nyo na, supposedly, and we are on the same page, kinabi nga ni Joyce King na, kano ang kahalagahan ng isang press council sa isang komunidad. Ito ay hindi lamang para sa atin, sa media industry, bilang journalist, media practitioners, pero ito ay public service. At yung accountability natin, hindi lang accountability sa trabaho natin, accountability sa siniserve natin na publiko. So yun ang idea or ideals of the press council. And hopefully when you guys decide amongst yourselves to create local press councils, kami sa PPI tutulong. Kasi ang sabi nga namin nila Sir Rolly, ito pa rin will be not naman under, but really ano bang tawag yun? Correlated dun sa ginagawa ng PPI talaga, ng efforts ng PPI. So yun. So hindi siya alienated sa PPI. It will still be a council by under the leadership of PPI kasi ang suggestion namin is that the regional trustees will take the lead to make sure that it is going to function as opposed to the first attempt. Yung first attempt namin many years back, na binanggit ni Attorney Sharis, talagang, sige, kahit sino na lang, bahala kayong ganun. But we thought that if we pass on the leadership or, assign regional trustees na well-respected naman in the area, probably it will function. For as long as, klaro, kung ano yung mekanismo, kung ano yung council na gusto ninyo, at para kanino yung council na yun. So yun lang naman. Oo. So Joyce, after this, magkakaroon pa tayo ng further discussions. In the case of Batangas Press Lab, there can be another regional activity, second activity nila, na para i-convene natin yung stakeholders ng ibubuo na press council or media council ng Batangas. Joyce?
And then we will have, of course, the Visayas and Mindanao legs of this discussion. We will be announcing the exact dates for those events. So ayun, actually I think I can ask the last one. Hold on, There was a pending question earlier before I cut it for the session kasi from Mar Argelies, ang tanong lang niya, he was a bit confused if the council should cater to mainstream or do we include bloggers or trolls. I think I can say with finality, we do not include the trolls. We do not engage trolls. Bloggers, that's up to the council. You want to invite them, you want to give them permanent membership or a semi-membership form, that's up to the councils. But trolls, no.
No, of course.
Yeah. Kita lang sila sa atin. How about the publishers and editors? What role should they play in the council? Sir Gary, Sir Gary still here?
Yeah.
Sir, would you want to take on this? Kasi ito, from your experience before, gaano ba kahalaga ang role ng publishers and editors sa isang press council?
Depende sa magiging form ng press council. No? If they're the ones taking the lead, then very important yung role nila. Kasi una-una yung right of reply, pag walang impetus ng editor, walang mangyayari.
Yes.
Or yung publisher. No? Pero pag sinabi ng may commitment sila, then there's some moral authority on the part of on those people who are controlling the gates.
Pero dapat, sir, kasama sila.
Automatic
po ba yun?
Kasi ngayon sa PPI, by publication, and then the publication appoints the representative.
Okay.
In our case, can you hear me?
Yes, Sherry, we can hear you. Go ahead.
In our case, by design, for the daily newspapers that I mentioned, it's supposed to be the editors-in-chief who will be the representatives in the council. And for the KBP, it's also whoever is the chairman and vice chairman. So it is expected that they will be the one to cascade whatever is decided in the council to the people under them. But sometimes the editor-in-chief is busy, so they send a news editor, so someone who is still a senior editor.
Yeah.
So these are the ones who attend.
Okay. Thank you, Cherry. That's the last question that I'm seeing in our chat box. I think we've had a great 3-hour discussion.
Yeah.
We've fleshed out a lot of things. We've renewed our commitment to a lot of things as well, diba? Especially what Cherry actually, I really like that one, that first slide na, accountability comes with doing what you have to do, diba? Press freedom is closely linked to holding ourselves accountable also. Sometimes we forget that in the busy everyday grind in the newsroom, we always have to remember we are all, at the end of the day, we're all accountable to our readers, to our stakeholders, to our community. So ayun po, kung wala nang ibang tanong, this is the part where we thank everyone for joining us today. We have such a lovely discussion. Maraming salamat sa mga nag-participate. We also kindly ask you to please look sa chat box natin ngayon. There will be a link there. There will be an online survey link. Please accomplish the survey form that helps Hans Seidel Foundation, with assessing how we performed in our activities. Also, please like the Facebook pages of PPI and Hans Seidel. We have a lot of upcoming activities. Ipopromote na natin, Ariel, ano?
Oo, pinost ko na din, Joyce.
Oo nga pala. Bago
para
ko
makita na
makalimutan, we have a major event on Monday.
Yeah, please.
It's an international forum hosted by PPI with the support, of course, of Seidel Foundation. Iyayabang ko lang ng konti. Ang speakers po natin, we have Mr. Ramon Tuason from UNESCO and the Asia Pacific Director of Reporters Without Borders, si Mr. Daniel Bastard. And we have journalists from all over the region participating as well. Yeah. So if you can, 2 p.m. GMT 8 Manila time on Monday.
Yeah.
We also post the link sa Facebook page natin.
Yeah, it's already there. All you have to do is to register so you can have a seat in the meeting room kasi syempre madami pong gustong umattend. But really, apart from the international forums, Joyce said, madami pa kaming upcoming activities this March and every month until the end of the year.
Yes.
So yun, maraming salamat to you, Joyce, our seminar director, and to all of you, our training team, our speakers, and participants. Meron lang akong gustong sabihin, if you guys want to join in the discussion in the Mindanao and Visayas leg, pwede naman yun. Walang problema po yun. Kasi baka meron pa kayong agam-agam, gusto nyo pang mas maintindihan pa at ma-appreciate pa at meron pang maitanong kung hindi na itanong, yung mga tanong nyo sa pagkakataong ito, please join us in our Mindanao and Visayas legs. We will be posting the dates of the 2 other forums in our FB page. And having said that, thanks very much, Seidel Foundation, and to the PPI board. Trustees natin, Joyce, and dito sila. Really taking time to be with us today until our next discussions. Maraming salamat po sa inyo at mag-ingat po tayong lahat. Thank you. Mabuhay po tayong lahat. Thank you. Thank you. CJ, salamat. Very active.